In a hellscape ruled by the undead, survival is just a brutal game of luck. Gear and ammo are the only gods now. Without them, you're just a walking Happy Meal. As the world descends into chaos, Xiaoyang remains ice cold. He saw this nightmare coming. Prepping like a caffeine-fueled genius, he built an impenetrable death-proof fortress for the end. He stockpiled mountain-high rations and gathered his crew to survive the rotting world in luxury. But even the grandest horde runs dry eventually. In this wasteland, the apocalypse breaks everyone. Right as things get ugly, Xiaoyang awakens a cheat code, the system. High-stakes missions, god-tier rewards. Clearing quests triggers epic loot drops. We're talking game-breaking buffs and rare resources for survival. These boxes grant him power while others starve. But every legend has a dark, bloody beginning. Zhang Xiaoyang's journey begins dangling by a thread over a pit of snapping, hungry maws. Below him, zombies wait. Above, his cold-hearted ex-girlfriend mocks his suffering with a twisted smirk. She spits on his grief, gloating about his dead friends. Her voice drips with pure venom. She promises he'll soon join the carnage below. Hanging there, Xiaoyang spirals through bitter regret. Guilt rips at his soul. He curses his stupidity for ever trusting a snake like her. His burning rage means nothing to her. To this traitor, he's just broken trash. She's already traded up for a top-tier alpha, ordering her new man to erase her past. Enter Li Shuisheng, a greasy mountain of a man happy to play executioner. He wants to savor screams. He toys with the release button, thanking Xiaoyang for donating his supplies to their luxury. With a smug laugh, he brags about the feast they'll have. Then the floor drops. He plummets. Instantly, the undead swarm like a tidal wave of teeth and rotting flesh. In his final agonizing seconds, one thought burns. If he gets a second chance, they will burn. Vengeance would be his. Suddenly, gasp, he bolts upright to the shrill screech of her voice. She's barking about house deeds and property rights. His brain glitches. Is this a dream or miracle? The air is clean. No rot. He's actually done it. He's regressed before the world ended. Trauma hits him. In the past, this leech bled him dry, stealing his inheritance and life. She left him homeless just as the plague erupted, turning humanity into a global zombie buffet. Despite the horror, his iron will and loyal crew kept him breathing against all the odds. They built a legendary sanctuary, a fortress where the undead couldn't touch them, and food never failed. But peace is fragile. Jing crawled back, crying fake tears to win his pity. Like a fool, he let the viper in. She sabotaged the gates, inviting monsters to dinner. Their empire crumbled in fire and blood. Yet here she is again, demanding a massive bride price. She wants the house and his soul, acting like her betrayal never happened. Not today. She's playing the same old game. Xiaoyang masks his killing intent, plotting his ultimate revenge. Rage is a luxury. He fakes a smile, playing along to keep his cards hidden. He dismisses her like a servant, leaving her baffled. This obedient puppy has grown sharp teeth. She's shaking, unable to process his cold vibe. Once she's gone, Xiaoyang focuses on destiny. 30 days, that's all he has before the world burns. No second wasted this time. This time, no snakes enter his garden. He'll be the apex predator in a world of prey. Suddenly, ping, a holographic screen flickers to life. A game interface with real-world stakes. He's bonded with the Doomsday system, a digital guide designed to turn him into a god. Quest 1, Doomsday Prep. Mission, secure a fortress and hoard supplies for a full year of hell. The prize, survival points. These are golden tickets to the store where the impossible becomes real. Xiaoyang's heart races. This cheat changes everything. He's not just surviving, he's going to dominate. It's the ultimate kit. But as he scrolls, the store's true potential remains hidden. For now. Potions, strength buffs, and mystery crates fill the menu. Suddenly, his deep dive is cut short. A violent growl from his stomach demands a feast, as memories of his previous life flood back. He remembers starving himself for Jin's wedding price, but that pathetic loser is gone forever. With the zombie outbreak only 30 days away, it was time to live like a king. Why not indulge while the world still stands? Soon, a legendary delivery arrived at his door. It was a top-tier Michelin 3-star meal, something he could never have touched in the past. He devoured the $300 braised pork, savoring real food after years of eating literal trash. The flavor was pure heaven. Xiaoyang transformed into a complete beast, devouring everything in sight. Plate after plate vanished. His hunger was bottomless, and he left absolutely no survivors on the table. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was Xiaoya, that annoying friend of his, gold-digging ex. Jin had already started crying to her. He picked up only to get blasted by a scream. Xiaoya went off screeching about how he dared to treat her bestie with such disrespect. She claimed it was just a test of love, and he'd failed. If he truly cared, he'd hand over his house and 1,000,000 yuan as an apology. She'd even help him. Comply or it's over. But Xiaoyang's patience had finally hit its absolute breaking point. Who did these clowns think they were? He roasted her and hung up. No more toxic women. Money-hungry leeches were done. Now he needed land to build an unstoppable, impregnable doomsday fortress. It needed water, woods, and perfect defense. The next morning, he headed straight to the agency. A polite consultant named Shang asked if he wanted to rent or buy a small place. Xiaoyang aimed higher. Suddenly, the arrogant manager Zhu stormed over with a nasty attitude. Zhu barked orders at Shang to haul toilet paper instead of helping a bum like him. Despite Shang's protests, Zhu sneered at Xiaoyang's cheap clothes, calling him a total broke nobody. He claimed Xiaoyang was a waste of time. The manager's ego was begging for a reality check. Xiaoyang leaned in, asking Zhu to repeat that trash. Zhu didn't back down one bit. He laughed, betting he'd eat a toilet on livestream if Xiaoyang actually bought any land. Big mistake. Xiaoyang smirked, telling him to get ready for a very crunchy porcelain dinner. He didn't want a house. He was buying the land itself. The entire office went silent. Outright land deals were unheard of. Shang quickly sat him down to go over the prime listings. Zhu glared, certain it was a bluff. Shang laid out the most expensive plots available. Xiaoyang skipped the fluff. He needed mountains, water, and existing large structures or factories. Shang searched her files, while Zhu couldn't stop himself from throwing more shade at the deal. He pointed to the Eastern District. Shang frowned, noting the T-City land was a total mess. It was a graveyard of abandoned factories and failed projects, completely useless to any sane buyer. Zhu shrugged, convinced Xiaoyang was just a clown, looking for attention anyway. But the location was perfect for Xiaoyang. Those useless factories were exactly what he needed. They were a massive shortcut. After checking the stats, he made his choice. This was the one. Without a second thought, he pulled the trigger on the massive purchase. He was ready to pay right now. Shang was stunned. Nobody buys a factory graveyard. But he didn't flinch. Hurry up, he urged. The manager is hungry for a fresh porcelain snack. Zhu stared at the check, his brain short-circuiting. How could this broke guy afford this? 300,000 for a wasteland. It made 0 sense to the arrogant manager. Xiaoyang reminded him, a deal is a deal. It was time for Zhu's live-streamed lunch. Other customers cheered, demanding the show begin. The stream was already going viral. One guy even offered to provide a fresh meal. Task 1 was complete. Now for supplies. As he stepped out, the first phase of his grand plan was finally in motion. Suddenly, an old-faced Li Shusheng spotted him, wondering what kind of game he was playing. As manager Zhou stepped inside, he found himself cornered by a mob of furious staff and impatient customers. They demanded he honor his promise while he pleaded for mercy, desperately backtracking on the deal he'd made. Elsewhere, Kui Jing was vibing in bliss, casually painting her nails until a sudden call from Fatty shattered the peace. He dropped a bombshell. Xiaoyang just dropped serious cash on a massive plot of land. Shocked, she spiraled. Where did he get that bag? Fatty guessed it was the bride price savings, and Kui Jing instantly saw red. She couldn't wrap her head around him spending her money like that. Li Shusheng begged her to keep it together. He suggested a talk, but Kui Jing's rage was pure fire. She wasn't looking for a polite conversation. She was hunting him down. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang was locked in his room calculating how to secure construction supplies. Construction had to begin now. Suddenly, a thunderous bang shook the door. Kui Jing had arrived with reinforcements. They were ballistic over his alleged spending spree. Xiaoyang was genuinely clueless. With eyes blazing, Kui Jing screamed that he'd wasted her bride price on dirt. She ranted that since it was technically her cash, the property belonged to her. Xiaoyang stood frozen, completely floored by her sheer audacity. Finally, he snapped out of it to drop some cold truth. He was absolutely loaded, but she wouldn't see a single cent. He then exposed her secret affair with Li Shusheng. Kui Jing froze, her mind racing. Her friend, reading the room and sensing a total meltdown, tried to play peacemaker. She begged them to clear the air, but Xiaoyang wasn't playing. There's no mistake here, he spat. Cui Jing isn't my girl. She's just a side piece for that old geezer. He slammed the door, ending the drama. Reeling from the insult, Kui Jing agonized over how he'd discovered her secret. Her friend's jaw was on the floor. She demanded to know why Kui Jing hid the affair. Kui Jing quickly brushed it off as a casual fling. Just a few hotel hookups, nothing more. As things spiraled, they decided to retreat and regroup at home. They needed a new strategy. Meanwhile, Xiaoya's gears were turning. She was ready to make her own move. She planned to seduce Xiaoyang, using their friendship as leverage. Next morning, Xiaoyang surveyed his new empire. Accompanied by a rough-looking crew, he prepared to overhaul the factory, though the timeline remained a mystery. Foreman Li scouted the perimeter, explaining that bolstering the walls and erecting sniper-ready defensive towers, plus razor-wire reinforced steel doors and ballistic glass, would be a massive undertaking. He wondered who was the enemy. Who needs a fortress like this? Xiaoyang dismissed him coldly, hinting that some secrets are lethal. He demanded a quote for a 30-day completion. The foreman just sighed and shook his head. Impossible, he claimed. Unmoved, Xiaoyang countered that he had high-level contacts who could accelerate the build. The foreman stood firm, prioritizing his men's lives over speed. This unexpected integrity caught Xiaoyang off guard. A foreman with a soul, rare. But of course, safety came with a much steeper price tag. Just give me the number, Xiaoyang insisted. After crunching the figures, Foreman Lee dropped the estimate. To finish in 1 month, his team would need 24/7 shifts costing exactly 20 million yuan, plus a 5 million yuan upfront deposit. It wasn't perfect, but Xiaoyang gave the green light immediately. He promised the remaining balance in 7 days, collateralizing the very land he stood upon as a guarantee. Suddenly, Xiaoya materialized at the site, strutting toward him with unearned confidence. She clung to his arm, purring. What are we doing here? Xiaoyang's patience was already at zero. In his previous timeline, this snake in Jing had conspired to rob him of his family legacy. Now he'd make her pay double for every betrayal. She could play the good girl act all she wanted, but he saw the rot beneath. Surveying the chaos, Xiaoya asked with a fake sweet curiosity, "Is this yours? It's gorgeous. Building a luxury villa." Xiaoyang didn't give a damn about her hollow guesses. Her opinions on his property were irrelevant. Her fake concern only triggered a deep sense of revulsion. His icy wall baffled her. Usually one soft touch from her would have him acting like a nervous wreck. Today, he didn't even blink. He brushed her off with cold indifference, striding toward his crew instead. He began barking orders to widen the main gate. Xiaoya watched, refusing to let this golden opportunity slip. Since Jing blew her shot, Xiaoya figured this land was her ticket to the top. Xiaoyang headed home. His brain was firing on all cylinders, plotting his next financial move, after putting his home on the line for a 3 million yuan loan. But that cash was barely enough for Phase 1. Still, with the impending apocalypse, paper money would soon be literal trash. He figured selling the same property to multiple suckers wouldn't matter once society crumbled. Ethical? No. Effective? Absolutely. Survival demanded extreme measures. Suddenly, a sharp rapping at the door cut through his thoughts. It was his nightmare neighbor, Grandpa Lee. This old vulture downstairs was a greedy tycoon who already snatched up the first and second floors. Now he wanted more. He'd been obsessively eyeing Xiaoyang's third-floor unit, but our hero hadn't budged an inch. Petty and vengeful, the old man started a harassment campaign, defacing doors and dumping garbage everywhere. He went full psycho, leaving coffins on the doorstep and jamming the locks to break Xiaoyang's resolve. Now the geezer was barking about a non-existent party from last night. In reality, Xiaoyang had been out cold. Arguing with a delusional liar was a waste of breath. Xiaoyang saw right through the fake accusations. He knew the endgame. The old man wanted the deed. Acting defeated, Xiaoyang finally tossed him a bone. "Fine, I'll sell." Li stood frozen in disbelief. But Xiaoyang's sudden surrender came with a very specific non-negotiable condition. He demanded to stay put for another 6 months, until he secured his next base of operations. More importantly, the old man had to wire 5 million yuan instantly to cover the deposit for a new place. It was take it or leave it. The greedy old man couldn't resist the bait and bit hard. He insisted on a legally binding contract to lock Xiaoyang in. Our hero just smirked and signed away. Little did the old man know he'd be dying in that house once the world ended. The 5 million hit the account. Xiaoyang's war chest now hit 8 million yuan, 3 from the bank, 5 from the neighbor. Time for Phase 2. He headed straight for the city's largest supermarket. It was time for the ultimate grocery run. As he began hoarding a year's worth of rations, the shoppers nearby whispered, convinced he was losing his mind. They gave him a wide berth as he shoved multiple carts down the aisles toward the checkout line. The crowd snickered, mocking him for being another paranoid fool chasing doomsday myths. Let them laugh. Their judgment meant nothing. All that mattered was ticking off the objective the system had calculated for him. Success. He pocketed 10 points and immediately burned them on a mystery supply box from the system shop. He cracked it open to find a level 1 space ring, a massive 500 cubic meter pocket dimension. Within this subspace, time stood frozen. Nothing would ever rot. This was an absolute game changer for survival. This meant he could stash a lifetime of fresh feasts without a single bite going bad. A new quest pinged to secure 10 years of food for a 20-point payout. The grind never stops. But as he processed his loot, a shadow loomed over him. It was the head of security, Yang Tao. This guy was an old high school nightmare who immediately recognized Xiaoyang's face. Back then, he was just a pathetic crony for the local bullies, shaking down the weak for pocket change. They had beef spanning years, but running into this lowlife today was a nasty surprise. Yang Tao sneered, ordering him to restock every single item, or face the consequences of his attitude. Xiaoyang fired back, noting that the coward was still just a bottom feeder hunting for easy prey. He wasn't putting a single can back. As a paying customer, he wasn't about to get bullied again. Yang Tao barked a demand for immediate payment, threatening a world of hurt otherwise. Fast forward 1 hour. The cashiers finally finished scanning a massive 56,000 yuan. Yang Tao stood there ready to gloat. Our hero didn't flinch, swiping his card like a weapon. The transaction cleared instantly, leaving the jerk speechless. As the stunned guard tried to slink away, Xiaoyang's voice rang out. "Hold it, right there." He wasn't letting this slide. He demanded a public apology for the disrespect, or he'd refund the entire haul. The security chief tried to act tough, but the growing crowd of witnesses made his ego crumble. Phones were out, capturing every second. The crowd was 100% Team Xiaoyang, ready to roast the guard online. They threatened to make him internet famous. Xiaoyang even upped the stakes, apologize and I'll buy 10 times more. If the guard doubted his pockets, he could bring the card reader over. Xiaoyang was ready to flex. When Yang Tao caught a glimpse of the 7 million yuan balance, his brain completely short-circuited. Xiaoyang demanded an apology before dropping another dime. The security chief's pride was wounded, but the suffocating pressure forced him to cave. As Xiaoyang walked past, he tossed a chilling warning. Think twice next time. Fate is a fickle mistress. Now playing the bestie Yang Tao, pride about the massive haul. Xiaoyang shut him down. His grand design was none of this snake's business. Smelling a payday, Yang Tao shamelessly offered to facilitate a much larger deal. The store's inventory was pathetic, but he knew a tycoon named Zhang Shengzai who ran the wholesale game. He buzzed him immediately, hyping Xiaoyang as a high roller. Xiaoyang realized instantly that snakes like these always haunt the same pits. Some things never change. He could only guess how much they were bleeding the business. They arrived at the massive depot, just as a flashy supercar roared up. Watching Shengzai's reckless driving, Xiaoyang knew this clown had never been humbled. It was time for a brutal reality check. The ego-tripping Shengzai ignored him until Yang Tao mentioned their school days. After a pause, the memory clicked. He recalled Xiaoyang as the kid with too much integrity. Back in the day, Shengzai immediately judged him by his non-designer thrift store rags. He loathed anyone faking wealth. Turning his venom on Yang Tao, Shengzai began snarling for bringing such a peasant to his warehouse. He even booted Yang Tao's backside for wasting time. Despite the frantic excuses, Shengzai was dead sure Xiaoyang was just another broke loser. He claimed his expert eyes could spot a fake a mile away. Tired of the posturing, Xiaoyang called him a blind fool who looked down on everyone. Enraged, Shengzai lunged, demanding a retraction. Xiaoyang didn't flinch, doubling down and calling him an illiterate moron. To his shock, it wasn't the arrogance comment that triggered him, it was the uneducated label. This powerhouse was secretly fragile about his lack of schooling. Seeing the explosion coming, Yang Tao scrambled to intervene, begging Xiaoyang to stop poking the bear. Don't push him. He's sensitive about being unlearned. For his trouble, Yang Tao caught another boot from the fuming Shengzai, who was absolutely losing his mind. The tycoon then dropped a savage ultimatum. Either Xiaoyang buys out the warehouse, or he leaves crawling like a dog. Xiaoyang stayed cold. He calmly told the man to unhand him and demanded the bank transfer details. Shengzai's fury vanished into pure disbelief as $1 million hit his account instantly. That's just the appetizer, Xiaoyang smirked. I'm spending $5 million total. Stunned, Shengzai stuttered, asking exactly what supplies the big boss needed. Rice, oil, and survival basics, goods that wouldn't rot. A predatory grin crossed Shengzai's face. He had a mountain of nearly expired junk, and Xiaoyang was the perfect sucker to dump it on. At the warehouse, Shengzai offered the whole lot at a measly 10% discount. It sounded too sweet, and Xiaoyang's intuition screamed scam immediately. Before signing, he demanded a quality check. True to his gut, the whole thing was a total trap. The boxes looked pristine, but the food inside was on its deathbed, caught red-handed. Shengzai panicked and slashed the price by half. But Xiaoyang wasn't satisfied with trash. He demanded premium stock for his $5 million, yet he had a different use for the junk. He offered to take the expired haul for pennies on the dollar with a 30-day delay. Shengzai balked until Xiaoyang put his own house on the line as security. The wholesaler was baffled. Why would anyone want a mountain of rotting food? He couldn't imagine that soon, these scraps would be worth more than diamonds. Xiaoyang kept silent, ordering the delivery to his secret location before a call about a property sale interrupted. He ditched the losers to meet an old man who offered $400,000 up front. With a 90-day move-out grace period, the deal felt suspiciously perfect. Too perfect. Xiaoyang noted the old man's desperate haste. The elder revealed his granddaughter needed a home for school fast. With Xiaoyang holding the only listing nearby, the old man laid all his cards on the table. Every detail spilled out. Xiaoyang smirked, asking if he wasn't afraid of a sudden price hike. Realizing his blunder, the old man began begging Xiaoyang not to exploit his desperation. These were his life savings. Refusing to prey on the innocent, Xiaoyang locked in the original deal. They signed, and pure relief washed over the elder. He was tearfully grateful, even offering an apology. He felt sorry for the interruption. Watching the man's genuine kindness, a flicker of worry crossed Xiaoyang's face. In the coming apocalypse, such kindness was a death sentence. Before they parted, Xiaoyang snagged his address. Later, Xiaoyang inspected his stronghold. Construction was humming. He tracked down the site foreman for an update. 80% finished. Reinforced steel walls and doors stood exactly as Xiaoyang had envisioned his fortress. The vault was operational. Seeing the progress, Xiaoyang wasted no time pinging Zhang Shangzi. It was time to flood the warehouse with supplies. This wasn't just storage, it was a literal underground bunker. Resources poured in. Under Xiaoyang's eagle-eyed watch, every crate was positioned perfectly by nightfall. After the crew vanished, Xiaoyang surveyed his kingdom. Everything was perfect. Finally, he could breathe. Ding, the system chimed, rewarding his hard work with 20 shiny new system points. Browsing the shop, he spotted a game-changer, pre-apocalypse ability awakenings. Absolute madness. He didn't blink before buying. Inside the mystery box lay a level 1 skill, Mind's Eye. It was a literal lie detector for malice. Xiaoyang grinned. This was his ultimate survival edge. But peace is a luxury. Just as he relaxed, the system dropped a fresh mission. Mission Hoard and Arsenal. Xiaoyang didn't sweat it. Arming up was already his top priority. Preparation for the end began now. Later that night, he plunged into the city's seedy black market. He needed heat, and this was the place. The market buzzed with the chaotic symphony of shady deals. Scammers and sellers crowded every corner. Everywhere, vultures were circling for a quick payday. Then, a familiar face cut through the crowd. A ghost from his past life appeared. Li Shusheng. The man was currently locked in a heated battle over some trashy fake jewelry. He was ruthlessly lowballing the vendor. Seeing this clown here was a total curveball for Xiaoyang. Haggling over garbage suited him. No wonder Sui Jing had fallen for such worthless plastic trinkets. Pathetic. Pushing past the nonsense, Xiaoyang finally found a stall that actually mattered. Cold steel gleamed under the dim lights. Dozens of blades sat waiting, each sharper than the last. A dark smirk played on his lips. Finally, he had found the real toys. Crouching low, he asked the dealer for the real stuff. The man behind the counter didn't flinch. Clad in camo, the vendor played dumb, tossing Xiaoyang a basic whetstone instead. Sharpen them yourself if you want an edge, the man spat. But Xiaoyang didn't budge. These toys weren't going to cut it. He needed lethal power. The vendor's eyes narrowed instantly. The vibe shifted instantly. You looking for trouble, kid? The man growled, his voice turning icy. Ping A notification shattered the tension. Xiaoyang had just wired a massive fortune, 200,000 yuan straight to the vendor's account. The man's hostility vanished in a heartbeat. Money talks. The seller grinned suddenly, treating Xiaoyang like a total VIP client. He signaled a lackey to guard the stall and beckoned Xiaoyang toward a hidden back room. Inside a plain-looking building, the real show started. The seller began pitching custom-made firearms, small-caliber junk for target practice. 2,000 a pop. Xiaoyang shot that offer down instantly. That bruised the dealer's ego. He stepped it up, revealing some heavy-duty replica revolvers, military-grade clones. 5,000 got you a 9mm piece, plus a full magazine. $5 a bullet. It was a decent deal, but Xiaoyang had a much bigger budget. These small fries didn't interest him. The seller blinked, wondering what a 200,000 yuan order actually looked like. Xiaoyang clarifies that the payment was just a 10% deposit for a massive $2 million contract. The dealer grows wary of the mysterious youth, forcing Xiaoyang to spin a quick web of lies. He claims his grunts usually handle these shady black market trades, but today he is handling business personally. He snaps at the interrogation, making the dealer realize Xiaoyang is a high-level player in something dangerous. The seller urges him to wait, retreating into a back room and bolting the door shut. After scanning the perimeter from the shadows, he returns, confirming Xiaoyang is the real deal. The transaction is set for midnight in 2 days, strictly cold, hard cash upon his departure. Despite the VIP treatment, a ghost from his past suddenly crosses his path. Down at the night market, Li Shuhong sneers at the bizarre coincidence of their meeting. Eyeing Xiaoyang's spending spree, Li suspects a secret alliance between him and Kui Jing. He figures the kid picked up some risky financial gambles to play this big. While the loudmouth brags about selling out and retiring, Xiaoyang could not care less. Tuning out the fat man's mindless chatter, our hero focuses on something far more practical. It is time to test his newly unlocked mind's eye, as a mystical haze swirls within his pupils. A joy icon floats above Old Gam, while Lu Wang radiates a burning symbol of rage. Realizing the utility of this power, Xiaoyang begins roasting the fat man for his cheap taste. He mocks him for using junk to deceive Kui Jing, labeling her as nothing but secondhand goods. Comparing his wares to literal trash, he watches the fat man's anger meter skyrocket. The icon bleeds into a deep dark violet as the man explodes in a fit of insulted rage. Sensing the heat, Old Gam steps in to regain control and questions Xiaoyang. Asking if this clown is bothering him, Xiaoyang gives a cold nod, marking Li as a target. Gam reassures his high-profile client that his bruisers will clean up the situation. Xiaoyang permits the beating, but warns them not to kill him. He still has uses for him. As mountain-sized thugs close in, the loudmouth's bravado instantly evaporates into thin air. His arrogance is replaced by pure, unadulterated terror as he begins to stammer for mercy. Without a word, Old Gam draws his baton, and the gang begins a brutal beatdown. They leave him broken and bloodied in the dirt, his white suit ruined by boot prints and bruises. The hatred festers, but 2 nights later, the main event arrives at a desolate warehouse. Everyone is punctual, and Xiaoyang is met by a truck overflowing with high-grade suspicious crates. This is the jackpot. The arrival of these weapons signals a flawless mission completion. The system grants him 10 points, bringing his total to 20 as he pries open the stash. It is a literal armory, heavy rifles, handguns, and tactical gear, followed by a surprise bonus. A physical enhancement potion, plus 2 drops, leaving Xiaoyang stunned by its sheer potency. It is twice as strong as the shop items, so he wastes no time plunging the needle home. Expecting a mild sting, he is instead hit by a violent tidal wave of raw surging power. Agony flares as the serum rewires his biology, boosting his physical stats by 2 full points. Feeling 40% stronger than his former self, he checks the system shop once more. Spotting another vial of the enhancement serum, he doubles down on his quest for absolute power. After the second dose, his stats hit 8, making him 60% more powerful than average humans. Itching to test his limits, Xiaoyang eyes some heavy-duty iron bars discarded in the corner. He tosses a thick construction rod into the air and unleashes a devastating high kick. The metal snaps and bends, whistling through the air before embedding itself deep into the concrete wall. The impact leaves a massive crater, proving his physical might has reached superhuman levels. With this godlike strength, he is ready to dominate the horrors of the coming apocalypse. Not wanting to leave a trail, he sweeps the entire arsenal into his spatial ring instantly. He leveled the mystical band at the cargo, and the steel weapons vanished into the ring's void instantly. 2 days remained until the apocalypse. Time was a luxury Xiaoyang didn't have while finishing his final errands. Yet he couldn't shake the memory of the elder who'd tried to buy his home using every cent of his savings. To protect his future, Xiaoyang had survived a hellscape of gore and betrayal during his first life's end. But his heart hadn't turned to stone. He felt compelled to drop survival gear for the old man and his kin. As a silent gesture of repayment, the next morning found Xiaoyang standing before a crumbling skeletal apartment complex. Tucked in a decaying urban wasteland, the structure was a labyrinth that even a top-tier GPS would struggle to pin. The poor soul was renting in this rotting dump. Without an elevator, it was obvious he lived on the edge. Reaching the top floor, Xiaoyang raised his hand to knock, but stopped, a sudden realization hitting him fast. Spawning massive crates out of thin air would be impossible to explain. He needed to prep the drop beforehand. Tapping the ring, he watched as survival kits manifested, clogging the narrow hallway with mountain-sized piles of food. Just then, the door creaked open. The old man stood there, likely dreading a visit from a heartless landlord. He immediately assumed the youth was there for debt, stammering a desperate promise to pay by next week. But his eyes widened upon recognizing Mr. Zhang. Behind the guest, a massive wall of cardboard boxes loomed. Provisions choked the hallway and spilled down the stairs, leaving the elder baffled. Xiaoyang silenced his questions for later. Explanations would have to wait. They needed to stash the loot before any prying eyes caught a glimpse. After several minutes of heavy lifting, handled mostly by Xiaoyang's superhuman grip, the haul was safely tucked away. The old man gaped at the boy's freakish strength. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang's eyes scanned the room like a tactical sensor. He scouted for defensive weak points, eventually deciding the reinforced front door made this place a decent makeshift bunker. With the perimeter secure, Xiaoyang turned to the old man with a look of dead serious intensity. He laid it out plain: these rations were literal lifelines and needed to be stretched for 6 full months. The clock was ticking, but as he prepared to elaborate, a tattered photograph on the shelf stopped him cold. It depicted the proud grandfather alongside a stunning young woman. To his absolute shock, the face was familiar. The girl in the frame was Li Shanshan, his ride-or-die comrade from the bloody trenches of the first apocalypse. Xiaoyang blurted out the name Shanshan, sending a fresh wave of confusion through the elderly man's mind. How did this stranger know her? Xiaoyang's face hardened into a mask of urgency. Where is she right now? She was at school while they finished paperwork. Memories flooded back, memories of Shanshan's crushing guilt and regret. In the original timeline, she'd blamed herself for dragging her grandpa into the chaos. He'd risked everything for her. He remembered the old man charging headfirst into a school teeming with the undead, just to find his girl. That suicide mission had cost the man his life, as someone who'd fought alongside them in another life. Xiaoyang swore this time the script would be rewritten. He turned to the man with an icy resolve. The deal is off. The house isn't for sale, he snapped. The old man spiraled, fearing the trade had collapsed. But Xiaoyang dropped a truth bomb. Society was about to burn, making deeds and schools completely worthless. Nothing mattered except pulling Shanshan out of the impact zone. This wild claim left the old man reeling. Time was a luxury. Xiaoyang knew a deep dive explanation would take too long, so he simplified the stakes. He told the man to imagine a global famine, a nightmare of starvation. Even then, the elder couldn't connect. Words were failing. The old man's mind couldn't bridge the gap between his reality and the coming nightmare. Action was the only language left. With a flick of his wrist, Xiaoyang commanded the boxes to vanish. The storage ring swallowed the supplies in a blink, leaving the room hollow. The man sat there, totally paralyzed. Xiao Yang revealed his gift, the power to see the end. To save Shanshan, he had to follow. The mission was clear: extract the girl. They tore through the streets, the engine roaring against a ticking clock. The grandfather gripped his seat in terror, his jaw hitting the floor. Xiao Yang drove like a demon possessed. He shredded traffic laws, weaving through the urban chaos. They arrived to find Shanshan cornered by a mob. High school drama had turned toxic. A pack of jealous bullies cornered her, landing a vicious slap across her cheek. Another girl delivered a cruel kick to her stomach for speaking up. The tension was hitting a breaking point. He bolted toward Shanshan, the atmosphere turning suffocatingly tense as he reached his granddaughter's side. The predators locked onto a new target. He roared for them to unhand her, but they responded with toxic arrogance. A wall of thugs blocked his path, flashing lethal steel while telling the old man to stay out of it. Unfazed, the elder charged. He blasted the punks for their cowardice as a steel bat swung toward him like a guillotine. The metal whistled toward his skull, a lethal strike, but Xiaoyang's instincts were already firing at light speed. Intercepting the blow, his eyes filled with pure contempt. This new generation of thugs was an absolute joke. They lacked true malice. Mistaking Xiaoyang for her brother, the remaining punks tried to flex their non-existent muscle. Xiaoyang didn't wait. He unleashed a devastating snap kick, crushing the thug's ribs and stealing his very breath. The punks soared backward like he had been blasted by a cannon. Witnessing their friend get ragdolled, the others froze. Their confidence crumbled. This was no ordinary elder. Maybe a desperate double team could find an opening. But those predatory eyes said otherwise. A blade flashed from the front, while another lurked in his blind spot. A basic pincer move with a bat and knife, pathetic, yet it was the only card they had left. The bat swung wildly, but Xiao Yang moved like a shadow, slipping underneath the strike with effortless grace. Those physical enhancement potions were paying off. His body felt like a finely tuned weapon of mass destruction. His reactions were god tier. He snatched the thug's collar, the punk's fate sealed in a split second. He cratered the thug into the concrete, instant lights out. Seeing his partner erase the last man standing, panicked. The final thug charged blindly with his knife. Xiao Yang didn't blink, parrying the blade with chilling precision. He locked the blonde punk in a death stare that froze his soul. No mercy, no hesitation. A brutal leg sweep shattered the thug's balance, sending him crashing down like a felled tree. The small fry were dealt with. Now, Xiao Yang turned his cold gaze toward the girls who tormented Shanshan. They picked the wrong victim. Having survived the first apocalypse, he lived by one rule: equal rights, equal fights. A thunderous slap echoed across the street. The force sent a shockwave of terror straight through her soul. Her cheek burned crimson. Next was the girl who had been ripping at Shanshan's hair. She was up. Time for a taste of her own medicine. He clamped down on her, refusing to let his prey escape. Her pleas fell on deaf ears. With a predatory glint, he snatched the knife from the unconscious thug. Cold steel kissed her throat. Her eyes bulged in horror before a sharp shink sliced through the air. A blood-curdling scream erupted, but Xiao Yang remained a statue. In the first apocalypse, he had seen far worse. His survival instincts were sharp as ever. The girl shivered, paralyzed as she watched her world crumble. Her friend slumped down, utterly broken. Relax, our protagonist isn't a total monster. At least not yet. Against petty bullies, he kept things light. No need for extreme measures when total humiliation works better. He gave her a jagged public haircut, a permanent crown of shame for the entire world to witness. Lessons learned 0. Sobbing with rage, she shrieked empty threats of revenge at his retreating back. Her screams were like buzzing flies. Radiating pure dominance, he looked down at her pathetic, crumpled form. He showered her in her own shorn locks like twisted confetti, the ultimate display of absolute disrespect. To the stunned onlookers, Xiao Yang calmly claimed he had actually done her a massive favor. Long hair is just a liability in a real fight. They didn't get it, but he knew the truth. We leave now, he commanded Shanshan. Once inside the car, Grandpa Li dropped a massive bombshell. School was over forever. The old man's eyes danced with a frantic, desperate intensity as he explained. A world-ending famine is looming, Shanshan. Survival is the only thing that matters now. She was convinced he had been brainwashed by a scam call. Their bickering filled the cramped back seat. Xiao Yang watched, smirk, hidden, just glad she was safe. But the games had to end eventually. He broke the silence, exposing the famine story as a convenient lie to motivate the old man. The reality was infinitely more terrifying. A literal hell on earth was coming. The Great Apocalypse. No more sugarcoating. In a matter of days, modern civilization as they knew it would be burnt to ashes. Shanshan stayed skeptical, but before she could argue, he simply pointed to her glowing phone screen. The omens were manifesting, and the broadcast made it official. A viral clip of Shanshan surfaced. It depicted pure pandemonium at a teeming station. A restrained man shrieked haunting prophecies. He ranted about lethal smog, but the horror peaked when he started mauling people. Was it rabies? His cold lucidity screamed otherwise. The situation imploded as he broke loose, hunting fresh prey. The scene morphed into a waking nightmare. Xiaoyang's grim warnings were coming to life. The countdown had begun. He declared that tomorrow would officially trigger day one of the end. A mysterious toxic mist would soon blanket the provinces, including their very own Province B. The fallout would be apocalyptic, birthing mutations and madness. Most people would transform into ravenous ghouls. Mindless and driven by primal hunger, they'd hunt. For the survivors, life would be a living hell. For Shanshan, zombies were just popcorn entertainment. Now, the silver screen was becoming her reality. Accepting this insanity was impossible, but once the blood started flowing, denial wasn't an option. Racing back to base was vital, yet fate was playing games. The highway turned into a graveyard. Even the emergency lane was a total gridlock. Frustration boiled over as the engines hissed in silence. Trembling with nerves, the old man couldn't shake Mr. Jiang's terrifying descriptions of the undead. Trapped in a sea of steel, his panic spiked. Xiaoyang stayed cold, insisting they were safe for now. Still, an outbreak could ignite anywhere. Things turned toxic when a flashy luxury ride cut in. It tore down the shoulder with zero chill. The driver was a spoiled brat desperate to bypass reality. As they crawled forward, the car lunged, trying to hijack Xiaoyang's lane with a violent swerve. Metal nearly groaned against metal. Xiaoyang stomped the brakes narrowly, dodging a total wreck. Xiaoyang didn't flinch, refusing to yield an inch. But the wealthy punk wasn't backing down. Pulling alongside, he unleashed a barrage of vitriol, playing the victim like a true narcissist. The old man begged for peace, fearing the driver's obvious wealth and untouchable influence. But Xiaoyang didn't do intimidation. If this clown wanted smoke, he was about to get it. They rotted in that jam for an hour. When traffic finally moved, they hoped the drama ended. Wrong. That same luxury car was now glued to their bumper, tailgating with pure vengeful malice. This wasn't just road rage, it was a death wish. The car accelerated, weaving dangerously to provoke them. Grandpa pleaded for restraint, but Xiaoyang's patience had evaporated. The world was ending anyway. Why tolerate trash? Xiaoyang leaned into the game, baiting the rich brat into a fatal mistake. It worked. In a fit of ego, the luxury car lost control, nearly obliterating itself against a hillside. Even after almost dying, the driver's ego was intact. He frantically dialed the police for justice. He demanded footage to hunt Xiaoyang. As midnight bled in, the trio finally reached their sanctuary. The city was swallowed by shadows. Stepping out, they were dwarfed by a colossal iron fortress. It was a monolithic titan of steel and stone. The old man froze, his jaw hitting the floor. The sheer scale of the compound was suffocating. Shanshan muttered that this felt like extreme overkill. She thought it was too theatrical. Xiaoyang, ever the stoic, simply told them to catch some sleep. Tomorrow, he whispered darkly, the world shifts into hardcore mode. Get ready for the change. Morning arrived and Shanshan felt strangely revitalized. No frantic alarms, no soul-crushing classes to attend. It was a rare, eerie peace. Stretching in the morning light, she spotted Xiaoyang nearby. He was already geared up. Sensing a chance to explore their new world, she requested a tour. Xiaoyang agreed, inviting Grandpa along. The tour began with a breakdown of the fortress's lethality. These walls were reinforced, concrete, thick, and indestructible. The gates, 3 centimeters of solid, hardened steel. They were remote-locked and immune to anything short of heavy artillery. This was built for the end. It was designed to repel both the starving living and the hungry or dead. Security was absolute. Every inch was engineered for survival. Finally, Xiaoyang stood tall in the center of the courtyard. Then came the ironclad decree. No one else for any reason would ever set foot inside. Shanshan bristled at his ironclad rules. His cold logic felt like a direct assault on her conscience. Leaving helpless souls to the mercy of the rotting horde was unthinkable. Yet, Xiaoyang remained unyielding. He guided them toward the perimeter where rusted shipping containers stood behind heavy-duty fencing. The buffer zone, he declared. This was the only sanctuary for outsiders, a desperate pit stop for the wandering. But the inner sanctum, strictly forbidden. In a world gone to hell, Xiaoyang knew the truth. Desperation breeds monsters, and betrayal is a luxury he couldn't afford. Even the old man's doubts began to fade. The gravity of the situation finally hit home. Next, they breached the massive steel doors of the food vault. Inside, mountains of rations were stacked with military precision. It was a literal jackpot in a dying world. Enough food to survive a lifetime. Xiaoyang didn't waste a second, triggering his mind's eye ability. He scanned their loyalty levels instantly. To his relief, both Grandpa and Shanshan radiated pure, unshakable trust. They were officially part of the inner circle. Then the real tour began, the high-tech weapons cache. He armed Shanshan with a deadly crossbow and handed Grandpa a heavy-duty shotgun, his eyes dead serious. "These stay with you," he commanded. "In the apocalypse, a lost weapon is a total death sentence. Let no one take them." His voice carried a chill that made it clear he wasn't suggesting he was ordering. The orientation was over, but the system wasn't done. A holographic window suddenly flickered into existence. A new mission. This one was personal. The system demanded a reunion with a face from his past. Zhongqi. The name hit like a freight train. Why now? The timing felt almost orchestrated by fate. High on the deck, a spectral arrow blazed a trail toward the city, pinpointing Zhongqi's exact location. Talk about perfect timing. Xiaoyang was already planning to gather his old squad before the real chaos hit. The system was rewarding his hustle. He pivoted to his team, his expression hardening into leadership mode. Follow the protocols to the letter, he barked. One slip-up would compromise everything he had built. Zero excuses. When they asked about his mission, his answer was simple. I'm going to recruit the heavy hitters. He peeled out, tracking the digital beacon. It led him straight to a neon-lit KTV bar. Inside, the bass was thumping and the drinks were flowing. Right in the middle of the chaos, Zhongqi. That iconic silver hair was impossible to miss under the strobe lights. He was partying like there was no tomorrow. Blasting karaoke and living it up, he seemed totally oblivious to the apocalypse brewing outside those doors. Wasted and laughing like idiots, Zhongqi and a buddy stumbled out to find the restroom. They were wobbling back when disaster struck. In his drunken haze, Zhongqi accidentally collided with a girl. It was a minor bump, total accident. But the girl looked at him like he'd just committed a war crime. He stammered an apology, trying to keep the peace. But her bodyguard, a massive tank of a man. The guy took it personally. You looking for trouble, punk, he growled, before launching a devastating kick. The impact sent Zhongqi flying into the drywall. He crumpled to the floor, gasping for air. His buddy was shaking like a leaf, but he didn't run. Seeing his friend down ignited reckless courage. He squared up, shouting at the brute. It was a suicide mission, but he wasn't letting this slide. Big mistake. The thug's face twisted in rage. He snatched the friend by the throat like a rag doll. He hoisted the guy clean off the floor, flaunting his strength. Zhongqi watched in horror, struggling to move. He clawed his way up, begging for mercy. It was my fault, just let him go, he pleaded. Suddenly, a staffer burst in, looking like death. He was still reeling from a nasty case of the flu. Add a cold on top, and he was a mess, but duty called. He knew the drill for bar brawls. He tried to play peacemaker, urging everyone to chill. But the thug, he wasn't interested in talking. He redirected his murderous glare at the staffer. You trying to tell me what to do, he spat. He started screaming for the manager, threatening to level the entire building if he didn't get his way. Shaking, the staffer gave Zhongqi a frantic get-out signal while the monster was distracted. They didn't need a second invitation. They bolted back to room 3090, crashing through the door. They were gasping for air, looking like they'd just seen a ghost. The whole crew turned in shock. The pair frantically explained their run-in with a drunk punk that nearly ended in a total bloodbath. They praised a brave employee who stepped in briefly, pausing the brewing disaster. Chen Chong wasn't having it. He stood tall, shouting that their engineering class bowed to no one. He wanted to rally their squad and humble those lowlifes once and for all. Zhongqi killed the vibe immediately. We're graduating soon, don't throw it away. Chasing street cred was a death sentence for their future careers. They needed peace, not a brawl. The party had to go on. Chen Chong slumped back down, and the group forced themselves to keep dancing. Fate had other plans. Seconds later, the thugs kicked the doors wide open. They stormed in the leader, dragging the mangled KTV worker by his throat before throwing him. He tossed the man aside like garbage. The room went ice cold instantly. The leader's eyes locked onto Zhongqi. Snatch them, he roared to his crew. The crew swarmed. Pure terror froze the students where they stood. They'd seen the brutality. But the hot-headed Chen Chong, however, wasn't going down quietly. He dared them to let him make one lethal call. The bluff backfired. Infuriated, the thug snatched a heavy whiskey bottle. Crack, the bottle shattered across Chen Chong's skull, drenching him in blood and booze. He crumpled to the floor. Zhongqi's heart hammered in pure horror. Help was already parked outside. Xiaoyang stepped out of his ride, grinning. His glowing system map had led him straight to this neon-lit chaos. This trashy bar was exactly where he expected to find Zhongqi inside. Inside, the violence peaked. A bleeding Chen Chong lunged for a metal ashtray. His grit was insane, but it only pissed the thugs off more. They pinned him down as the leader smashed a second bottle into his head. Fresh blood sprayed everywhere. Zhongqi finally snapped. He wasn't running. He charged the boss, ignoring the blades surrounding them. Ride or die. Glasses jumped in too. 2 college kids against a small army. It was a suicide mission. Their cowardly friend hid in the corner, shaking. Suddenly, a guttural sound echoed from the floor. Something terrifying was changing. The mangled KTV worker began to twitch with a sickening, unnatural rhythm. His skin turned gray as black veins pulsed. He wasn't human anymore. In a flash, he mutated into a ravenous, speed-blitzing zombie. He lunged, burying his teeth deep into a thug's shoulder like a predator. The man shrieked in agony, struggling to shake the monster off his back. The creature's strength was demonic. Another thug tried to intervene. The beast pivoted, latching its jaws onto the second man's arm with ferocity. Screams tore through the room as total pandemonium erupted. Zhang Qi and Glasses braced themselves while their classmates dissolved into panic. Their cowardly friend was hyperventilating, nearing a total mental collapse. The zombie was an unstoppable force of nature. Death was closing in. Then the door creaked. Zhang Xiaoyang had finally arrived. He snatched the zombie's throat and hoisted it up like it weighed nothing. His one-handed strength left the room in absolute terrifying silence. Xiaoyang. He dragged the beast over and slammed it through the thick glass wall. Glass rained down. The beast slumped. Xiaoyang stared down the room. His voice sliced through the mayhem like a cold blade. Everyone stand down, thugs and students alike, along with the trembling Zhang Qi, were instantly paralyzed. Xiaoyang's icy aura and the ruthless efficiency he used to neutralize the rabid zombie demanded absolute fear. The gangsters who struggled even in pairs realized they weren't dealing with a normal human. Yet the lead thug, blinded by ego, refused to retreat. He unleashed his fury on Xiaoyang, desperate to maintain his top dog status. Completely ignoring the trash, Xiaoyang looked directly at Zhang Qi. "Did you get bit?" Still shaken to his core, Zhang Qi stammered out a no. Without wasting a single breath on small talk, Xiaoyang commanded him to follow. For reasons Zhang Qi couldn't grasp, his body moved instinctively to obey. But as they started to leave, the lead thug blocked their path, still delusional enough to think he held the cards. Before a brawl ignited, one of the bitten thugs began hacking violently. His voice turned into a raspy growl as he groaned. Xiaoyang's predatory gaze locked on him, detecting the inevitable mutation. The signs were textbook for an infection: uncontrollable coughing, severe vertigo, and that nasty bite wound rotting on his shoulder. Even his earlier complaint about a runny nose served as the final piece of the puzzle. "Yeah, he's definitely cooked," Xiaoyang muttered, watching the infection blacken the man's veins in real time as the rot spread. Since the bite was so close to the nervous system, the transformation was hitting overdrive. Time was up. Before he turned into a full-on monster, they couldn't risk fighting two rabid zombies in this death trap. Still pinning the first zombie by its throat with one hand, Xiaoyang surged into action. He dragged the thrashing beast across the room, showcasing a level of strength that left everyone speechless. Xiaoyang reached the restroom, kicked the door open, shoved the undead inside, and slammed it shut instantly. The trapped zombie began hammering against the door with primal bloodthirsty rage. The sound was pure nightmare fuel. Every eye was glued to Xiaoyang, faces frozen in a mix of terror and disbelief. What kind of monster could manhandle a zombie like a toy? Xiaoyang brushed off his hands, his gaze turning dark. The immediate danger was locked away, but his focus snapped back to the human threats. His eyes pierced through Zhang Qi, who was still standing there in a daze. Xiaoyang asked coldly, "Which of these punks do I need to drop first?" Zhang Qi's brain was lagging the question, confusing him. Who was this guy? Why was he playing bodyguard? They were total strangers. Meanwhile, the lead thug, with his pride shattered, reached his breaking point. "You're dead, kid," he screamed, charging with a desperate swing. Xiaoyang didn't even blink. He looked genuinely bored, as if he were swatting a bothersome fly. Before the fist could land, Xiaoyang blurred his hand, clamping onto the thug's face like a vice. His fingers dug deep into the man's skin as he drove him forward, slamming his face right into the glass table. The surface exploded into a million shards, a deafening crash echoing everywhere. Another infected gangster, pale as a ghost and drenched in sweat, staggered forward in a blind rage. Xiaoyang shifted his weight, his movements calculated and deadly. In one fluid strike, he crushed the man's windpipe. The thug collapsed instantly, gasping for air as he hit the floor hard. As his crew rushed over, absolute panic erupted. The man began convulsing, white foam bubbling from his lips. His body jerked in unnatural ways, eyes rolling back as his skin turned a ghastly shade of gray. The virus had won. The man was turning right in front of them, and there was no going back. Xiaoyang stepped forward, his knuckles cracking. "Anyone else feeling lucky?" he asked with a menacing calm. Turning to Zhang Qi, Xiaoyang gave a final order. "Grab your friends and get out. Now." Zhang Qi didn't hesitate. He and his classmates hauled the injured Chen Chong up, bracing his shoulders. They scrambled out of the room as fast as their legs would carry them, desperate to escape. The gangsters, now terrified, tried to make a break for it too. They dragged their wounded allies, who were all showing terrifying signs of the turn. But as they reached the exit, Xiaoyang blocked the doorway. "You're not going anywhere," he hissed coldly, his aura looming over them like a literal death sentence. The lead thug tried one last desperate move. "Think you're a hero," he sneered, voice trembling despite the bravado. Yet the thugs recoiled under Xiaoyang's icy stare, their liquid courage evaporating instantly. In this harrowing moment, the harsh truth finally dawned on them. They weren't the apex predators they claimed to be. Ignoring the chatter, Xiaoyang effortlessly hurled the lead thug back, sending him tumbling to the floor. As the heavy door swung shut, the punk's wounded pride flared up. He lunged forward, hammering against the wood, while Xiaoyang stepped out and locked them in with a bang. The leader shrieked, striking the exit in a frantic fury, until a bone-chilling growl silenced his pathetic tantrum. Turning back, he saw his bitten comrade finally turn. The thug's blood ran cold as he met the bloodshot, crimson gaze of his zombified friend pouncing with lethal speed. Suddenly, the private room descended into absolute chaos, as the remaining thugs scrambled to repel their former ally. But hope was dead. The virus moved like wildfire, quickly transforming the space into a slaughterhouse. Outside, Xiaoyang stood like a statue, gripping the handle with iron force, to ensure no one escaped. Muffled shrieks and the sickening sound of shredding meat bled through the thick wood, freezing the blood of everyone nearby. A terrified KTV worker approached him, trembling between curiosity and pure dread, whispering, "What's happening?" Xiaoyang didn't blink. "Fetch the keys and seal this entrance. Nobody leaves and nobody enters, ever. Call 911 and report a massive rabies outbreak." The staff stood there, paralyzed their minds, failing to process the horror. But Xiaoyang's roar forced them into action. Snapping out of his trance, the waiter bolted to find the keys, double-locking the suite from the hallway. Those haunting, inhuman screeches echoing from within sent waves of terror through the staff. One reckless employee raced to the security booth to check the cameras. The grisly live feed made his stomach churn. The monitors displayed a nightmare, monstrous figures devouring their own fallen brothers. Crimson gore coated the posh wallpaper, and the leader's girlfriend, once so arrogant, was being ripped to shreds by the ravenous beasts. Her glazed eyes stared into nothing as the monsters feasted. Shaking, the security team frantically dialed for help, describing the hellscape unfolding inside their club. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang escorted a shell-shocked Zhang Qi and his crew toward the exit. "This place is a death trap now," Xiaoyang declared, with icy authority. "We're leaving." Still reeling, the students didn't protest. They trailed behind him like lost puppies toward his vehicle, squeezing the wounded Chen Chong into the back. As they sped away, Zhang Qi finally found his voice. "Thanks for saving us," he stammered. "But who are you? Why risk your life?" Xiaoyang met his eyes. "A mysterious client paid me to keep you breathing." The lie was convincing enough to settle their nerves for now. The most timid boy piped up that, "Rabies flu. It's actually happening, right? I thought it was just internet bait." Xiaoyang's face turned grim. "Look at me. Does that carnage look fake? That wasn't a bar fight. It's the end of the world." Glasses swallowed hard, his voice cracking. "Is there a cure? A shot?" "None," Xiaoyang answered coldly. "There's no medicine for this, and no way to halt the spread. The nightmare has begun, and it only gets darker. To survive, you obey my every command." As they navigated the city, his warning was validated by the surrounding chaos. As they witnessed a crazed man hunting a screaming pedestrian. The city hadn't fallen yet, but the infection was gaining ground fast. Soon, nowhere would be safe. Glancing in the rearview mirror, Xiaoyang recalled a bitter memory from his past life. One of these very friends had eventually betrayed Zhang Qi, causing a massacre at the hands of the undead. Zhang Qi was the sole survivor of that bloody treachery, leaving him emotionally destroyed. Xiaoyang scanned the boys' reflections, analyzing every twitch and shifty look on their faces. A rat was among them. But who? Meanwhile, on the far side of town, Jing whispered sweet nothings to her boyfriend over the phone. Anxiety had been gnawing at her for days. He'd promised her vital supplies, but her once quiet neighborhood was rapidly spiraling into a lawless war zone. Paralyzed by fear, she clung to his promises that he'd deliver the food the moment he could safely travel. As she begged for details, a sudden violent thud at her door nearly made her heart stop. She disconnected instantly, her breathing ragged as she crept toward the entrance. Squinting through the peephole, she gasped in relief. It was only Xiaoya. Jing fumbled with the locks to let her friend inside, but a heavy dread still lingered. Earlier that day, Old Man Lu from the first floor had started acting strange. Law enforcement and EMTs cleared the scene in silence. Despite the cover-up, Jing's ears caught every chaotic moment from her room. At dawn, the two schemers connected the dots. The mounting proof of an impending apocalypse was now impossible to ignore. That rabies flu wasn't just clickbait, it was a death sentence. Meanwhile, Shuxiang's promised care package, still ghosting them. Xiaoya had already flagged that greasy fatty as a total snake. Yet even snakes have uses. He was the perfect sacrificial pawn for the twisted scheme they were brewing. The gold plunder, Jiang Xiaoyang's hidden vault. They realized that treasure trove was a goldmine amidst this viral hellscape. Too bad Xiaoya's first solo attempt was a total flop. Her femme fatale act got her tossed like trash. But she wasn't about to quit just yet. She set a simp to shadow him, spotting heavy-duty trucks dumping crates of survival gear. Inside a renovated factory, it was clear Xiaoyang saw the apocalypse coming way before the world did. Time for these witches to move. Their plan, use Li Shuxiang as a Trojan horse to breach the fortress. They'd seize his mountain of loot by any means necessary. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang pulled into his sanctuary tires, crunching on gravel. Looking around, even the Zhang Qi stood frozen, jaw dropping. This wasn't just a base. It was a god-tier fortress. Xiaoyang just smirked. It's the same vibe everyone gets when they first witness it. Their arrival sent ripples through the camp's inhabitants. Guards stepped out, fingers twitching on their triggers. But as soon as they clocked Xiaoyang, the tension evaporated instantly. Grandpa Shan and little Shan Shan looked like they'd seen a miracle, relieved he wasn't zombie chow. After cooling their nerves, Xiaoyang flexed he was okay and introduced the squad, starting with his buddy Zhang Qi. He labeled the rest as just schoolmates. The elderly man and the girl greeted the fresh faces with pure kindness. Declaring the zone safe, Xiaoyang tapped Grandpa Shan to lead the group on a full walkthrough of the stronghold. As the laws of the land were laid out, the guy named Glasses felt like he'd stepped into a military site. Before the tour even kicked off, this guy Yiming piped up with a voice that practically trembled with hidden nerves. He dared to ask for heat to protect the place. Xiaoyang's eyes turned into cold daggers, piercing him. Red flags were flying. They'd been there for 60 minutes, and this dude was already itching for a weapon. Major sus vibes. Glasses hissed at Yiming to chill out, reminding him they were still just guests on probation. Loyalty isn't free. To kill the tension, Xiaoyang claimed guns would be handed out in a few days. The main mission was saving Chen Chong's cracked skull. His vitals were dropping fast and things looked grim. They rushed to the infirmary. Hours passed before the squad could finally exhale and stop looking over their shoulders. The stench of alcohol faded after their brush with death. Yiming leaned toward Glasses, wearing a massive scowl. "Why'd you cut me off?" he spat. "We'd be packing heat right now if you hadn't played it safe." Yiming's rant about self-defense would have been peak comedy if it wasn't so incredibly annoying to everyone listening. Unarmed, he felt like a prisoner in a cage. Luckily, Glasses actually had a working brain and stayed quiet. He was just glad to be alive, unlike Yiming, who was hell-bent on stirring the pot of chaos. He kept poisoning the well, trashing Zhao Yang's cover story about being some mystery client's high-paid bodyguard. "That's total cap," Yiming sneered. He gnashed his teeth, moving his target to how Chen Chong was being handled. Xiaoyang promised recovery, but Yiming looked at the lockdown medical bay like it was some secret torture chamber. Then came the wildest reach, he claimed. Xiaoyang was only saving Chen to harvest his organs in secret. The theory was insane, but Yiming was on a mission to drag everyone else into his paranoid delusion. He wanted a preemptive strike against their leader. Glasses instantly rejected the idea of backstabbing the man who saved them. Betraying their savior was a hard no. But Yiming snarled, "Better I snake the world than the world snakes me." He played the main character role hard. His endgame stealing the fortress and ruling this wasteland like a king. The audacity. He even plotted to kidnap the old man and the kid the moment Xiaoyang stepped out. He made a vile remark about Shanshan's looks, exposing his dark side. The group looked at him with revulsion. Sensing the mood shift, Yiming forced a laugh and shrugged. "Chill out, I was just trolling," he lied. Pure-hearted Zhang Qi actually believed him. Meanwhile, Glasses saw right through the mask and stated the cold truth. "If he wanted your lungs, you'd be on a slab already." As they exited the showers, the air stayed heavy. Yiming mentally canceled them. In his mind, only the most ruthless monsters would survive this end-of-the-world nightmare. While Yiming cooked up more schemes, Grandpa Shan delivered the latest intel to Xiaoyang. The new arrivals were nesting, and Chen Chong was under observation. Every single exit was now locked down tight. Xiaoyang showed respect to the pair for their grind, telling them to hit the hay before he headed out. Before leaving, Xiaoyang dropped a chilling warning. "Watch those students carefully," he whispered. "I smell a rat." At midnight, he ghosted to his warehouse to handle some high-level system business. He summoned the system's digital shop, scrolling through the loot with a surgical gaze. With a quick tap, he cashed in 2 points for a level 1 farmer box and 5 points for a massive food supply crate. Another 5 points secured a level 1 weapons deterrent box, leaving his balance at exactly 8 points. The loot was fire. The farming box yielded 50 corn seeds, a potential lifesaver for survival in this wasteland. The food crate dropped 200 kilograms of sausage and 100 kilograms of pre-cooked braised pork with veggies. 50 boxes of noodles appeared, and the weapon box held 1,500 rounds of 9mm ammo. With his defensive hoard secured, Xiaoyang surveyed the rewards, a true king of his domain. This massive haul was a goldmine. In a starving world, these resources were the ultimate power. This loot was priceless. Forget cash in this brutal reality, these supplies were worth more than gold. The next morning, the peaceful silence of the fortress was suddenly ripped apart by engine roars. A fleet of cars screeched to the gate, unleashing a mob of thugs brandishing wicked blades. Moving with lethal intent, they followed a suited boss who barked commands after his phone call. "Smash the gate," he roared. The stupid army lived up to their name, swinging bats at steel. They kicked and bashed until their legs ached, whining like toddlers about the reinforced steel's thickness. Losing his cool, Mr. Suit demanded the heavy hitters, but the weapons they produced were pathetic. Instead of C4 or heavy artillery, the crates they hauled out held nothing but dusty wine. They rigged up makeshift Molotovs, lighting the fuses and hurling fireballs over the massive perimeter wall. The firebombs landed clumsily, mostly scorching the dirt rather than hitting anything of real value inside. Still, the inferno caused a panic as a few bottles ignited the roof of the apartments. Sean and Zhang-Chi leaped into action, grabbing fire extinguishers to quench the rising heat immediately. Water splashed everywhere as they fought the flames, thankful Xiaoyang had predicted this exact raid. The apocalypse hadn't fully arrived, but these violent skirmishes were becoming the new, terrifying norm. While the kids handled the fire, Xiaoyang and Grandpa Sean geared up with high-caliber heat. They scaled the watchtower to survey the madness, where the old man squinted at the invaders. Recognition sparked. Wait, is that the suited clown from the highway road rage incident a few days ago? It was definitely him. Below, a low-level thug spotted the duo and pointed a shaky finger. "Boss, look, it's that bastard from the highway," he shrieked, alerting the man in the suit. Mr. Suit went nuclear. Recognizing Zhao Yang, he unleashed a torrent of vile insults that echoed. "You're dead, punk. Get down here now or I'll turn this whole fort into an oven." Cold as ice, Xiao Yang's voice cut through. 5 minutes. Clear out or face the consequences. Stay a second longer and you're done. The gang roared, fueled by pure, unadulterated ego. They treated his ultimatum like a joke. Rather than retreating, they prepared to escalate the violence. 2 more crates of Molotovs appeared. They weren't there to talk. They were there to burn. Suddenly, a system notification pinged. While Sean hesitated about warning shots, Xiaoyang checked the rewards. The mission was simple: eliminate the hostiles immediately to secure a victory and points for survival. The 10-point bounty was all he needed. Warning shots. Those were just a waste of ammunition. These weren't innocent survivors. They were bottom-feeding thugs, looking to play God in the chaos. Even before the fall, scumbags who throw firebombs at people deserved zero mercy or second chances. In this new world, leaving snakes like these alive was just asking to get bitten later. Decision made. He took a breath, steadied his grip, and let the lead fly without hesitation. The first shot ripped through Mr. Suit's arm, leaving him staring in shock at his mangled limb. Blood-curdling screams pierced the air. In an instant, the gang realized they had stepped into a trap. High above, Xiaoyang looked like a stone-cold killer, though he was actually annoyed with himself. "Damn it, I missed the head," he muttered. Peace had clearly dulled his lethal killer instinct. Terrified by the rifle fire, the thugs scrambled for cover with their boss leading the retreat. Mr. Suit tried to crawl away, but Xiaoyang wasn't about to let his prey escape. He systematically picked them off. They wanted to rain fire. He'd give them a storm of lead. He aimed for vitals, turning the driveway into a slaughterhouse in a display of absolute dominance. Driven by raw adrenaline, the bleeding boss managed to dive into one of the getaway cars. He shrieked at the driver to floor it, ignoring his mangled arm. Grandpa Sean watched, worried. The old man watched the escaping vehicle with dread, but Xiaoyang didn't even blink. He snatched the automatic beast from the rack. Cold eyes locked onto the moving targets as he tracked them. Thunder erupted as lead shredded the air. Empty shells rained down like heavy metallic tears as he emptied every mag. Every bullet struck home with lethal intent. Grandpa Sean watched, paralyzed by the youth's lethal fluid grace. The cycle of death was seamless. Even as a veteran, the old man had never witnessed such cold military efficiency. The storm ended as quickly as it began. Silence swallowed the fortress, broken only by smoldering embers. The cocktail's fury had died out. Now a carpet of fallen thugs paved the path to the main entrance. The steel frame of the getaway car sat mangled. Inside, only corpses remained of their desperate failed flight. Xiaoyang's gaze didn't waver. "Call the others," he commanded. "It is time to scrub this porch clean." But a darker inspiration struck him as he surveyed the carnage. The early apocalypse was a playground for growth. Why waste these assets? Let the virus take root and let them rise again as the walking dead. They would be the perfect target dummies for the crew's training. Live fire practice was about to begin. A chilling smirk touched his lips as he revised the orders. Let them rot exactly where they fell. We'll harvest them later. Meanwhile, a fresh convoy of predators crept steadily toward the fortress gates. Inside a sleek white sedan, Li Shuxiong's patience was wearing thin. He demanded their arrival time immediately. Xiaoya leaned in, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness and a playful, cutesy pout. She promised they were just one intersection away. Behind them, Jing's blood boiled at the pathetic act. It was a scripted show for her gangster sugar daddy, a desperate performance for protection and power. But Jing was the queen of manipulation. She saw every hidden motive behind those fake, playful smiles. As the tires crunched onto the gravel outskirts, Jing ordered the boss to wait in the car. She'd scout ahead with the brat. The moment they exited, she gripped Xiaoya with an iron hand. She used the girl's knowledge as a leash. But Xiaoya wasn't interested in this suicide mission. "It is right there," she hissed, pointing at the looming structure. "You can't miss a factory that massive." She whined about her designer heels being ruined by the walk. But Jing wasn't playing games anymore. The protests were ignored. Even her phone was snatched away in the brutal physical struggle. Dragged into the dirt, Xiaoya's resentment flared. She was being forced into a nightmare against her will. Back at the cars, the boss prepped his hounds. Lock and load, Li Shuxiong barked to his men. He envisioned a grand siege with his vanloads of young thugs and veteran killers ready to strike. Walking toward the gates, Xiao Ya whispered her venom. She wanted no part of the impending chaos. Kui Jing just sneered, certain the girl was trying to outmaneuver her for the boss's favor. She was dead wrong. Xiao Ya didn't care about the gangster. Her sights were set on the king Xiao Yang. Every outfit was for him. Kui Jing was already burnt toast in Xiao Yang's eyes, thanks to Fatty. Their petty squabble died instantly. Before them lay a literal graveyard of bullet-riddled fresh meat. The approach to the gate was choked with bodies, their blood soaking deep into the parched earth. Terror gripped Xiao Ya's heart. "We need to go," she gasped, staring at the crusty, dried gore. But Cui Jing's greed was louder than her fear. She figured two rival gangs had just slaughtered each other. In her mind, the owner was likely a casualty in the crossfire. Just another loser caught in the middle. Dead or alive, the man didn't matter. Only the mountain of loot inside that fortress was important. Xiao Ya begged to let the hired guns take the risk. But Kui Jing was obsessed with the lock. She crept forward, desperate to see if the factory gates were ripe for the picking. They had no idea the horror was evolving. Deep inside those corpses, the virus was finally waking up. Post-mortem mutation had begun. Unaware, the two women slithered toward the massive steel wall. Up close, the barrier was a monolith. No handles, no buttons, just cold, impenetrable steel. Everything inside was a mystery. Xiao Ya felt a spark of hope. Maybe he was still safe inside. Their investigation was cut short by a sharp shout from the high outpost near the entrance. There stood Shanshan crossbow, leveled at their heads, her eyes cold and ready for war. Shanshan barked at them, demanding how they'd track down their stronghold. Sensing danger, Xiao Ya flipped the switch to friendly mode, putting on a fake smile like an old bestie. She lied through her teeth, claiming they were Xiao Yang's close friends. Qu Jing, the bolder of the two, cranked up the drama by declaring herself Xiao Yang's girlfriend, Shanshan. Totally over their act, turned toward the base to report the two witches at the gate, especially the one yapping about being his girl. The moment Shanshan vanished, Qu Jing's mask shattered as she started fuming with pure rage. She trashed Xiao Yang for dumping her for a younger model, her eyes burning a hole through Shanshan. The more logical, Xiao Ya hissed at her to chill. That girl had a loaded crossbow and zero hesitation to pull the trigger, yet they stayed cocky, betting everything on Li Shuxiong's armed thugs to finish the job. In their twisted minds, their only job was to crack open the gates and let hell break loose. Then Xiao Yang stepped onto the watchtower. Seeing those two toxic ghosts from his past down there, his blood began to boil with suppressed fury. Quietly triggering his mind's eye, he scanned their stats. And just as he suspected, that friendly vibe was a total lie. They were both drowning in malice, plotting their next move. Xiao Ya immediately launched into an Oscar-worthy performance, sobbing that they only came to see if he was safe. She spun a sob story about the outside world's chaos, desperate to trigger his sympathy. But Xiao Yang, he'd already survived their betrayals once. Flashing a savage smirk, he instantly dismantled their lies and asked, with a voice laced with pure venom, "So what kind of weapons did you ladies pack for me this time?" The two schemers froze. Their perfect plan had been shredded before they even set foot inside the base. And Xiao Yang wasn't done. He decided it was time for a little lesson in consequences. Right then, right there, he opened fire, sending a hail of lead dancing around their feet. Screaming in terror, the women scurried like rats. They shrieked, calling him a psycho for being so unhinged. But Xiao Yang just stood there cold and calculated, emptying his entire clip without blinking. Shaking with fear, Xiao Ya tried to beg for a peaceful resolution. But Qu Jing, she doubled down on her arrogance, still treating him like the pushover she remembered. Big mistake. Massive. Simply ending them with a bullet was way too merciful for Xiao Yang's taste. No, he had a much more twisted fate prepared. A special kind of hell, to mirror the darkness in their own souls. And then, low, guttural groans echoed from right behind them. The fallen thugs started to twitch. One by one, they rose, their bodies mangled and hungry for warm flesh. From his high perch, Xiao Yang watched the carnage with zero emotion. Seeing those thugs turn into monsters wasn't just a nightmare, it was pure karma. Leading this undead parade was the pathetic Mr. Suit, still acting like a boss even as a rotting corpse. Three of them suddenly lunged with predatory speed, craving nothing but a taste of blood. The girls shrieked and bolted narrowly, dodging those snapping yellow teeth and rotting claws. Gasping for air, their desperate screams for help finally reached Li Shuxiong's ears. Lounging in his ride, he peered out and saw the absolute horror show of the living dead, hunting down the women. Panic hit him like a truck. Without a second thought, Li Shuxiong roared at his crew. "Turn the car around. Move it now." The tires screeched as the gang peeled out, leaving a trail of dust. They were left completely alone. Qu Jing, lungs burning and legs failing, started to lag behind. The undead were gaining fast, but even at death's door, her heart was still as rotten as ever. In a split-second betrayal, she hurled her purse at Xiao Ya's feet. The strap snared Xiao Ya's ankle like a trap, sending her face planting hard into the asphalt. Before she could even scream, the pack was already on her. Jaws clamped onto her limbs, ripping through muscle and bone. Crimson sprayed the ground as they feasted, their hunger never ending. Xiao Ya's screams faded into wet, gurgling rasps of pure betrayal. Her dying gaze was fixed on the friend who had sacrificed her. But Chu Jing, she didn't even flinch. She just kept sprinting, whispering that Xiao Ya got what was coming to her. Cold-blooded doesn't even describe it. High above, Xiao Yang witnessed the entire massacre, his face a mask of cold indifference to her brutal end. A satisfying chime echoed in his head, 10 points for neutralizing a threat. Meanwhile, Shan stood there paralyzed. She'd never seen the undead before, and the sight of those reanimated thugs was soul-shaking. Watching the deceased transform into ravenous flesh-eating ghouls was a horror that nearly shattered her sanity. Xiao Yang remained eerily composed, briefing her on the grim reality. This is only the true beginning. Extraterrestrial spores now saturate the atmosphere. Anyone caught outside, especially the deceased or the physically frail, will undergo a rapid, grotesque mutation. Xiao Yang turned away from the escalating madness, his mind racing forward. Preparing for the inevitable, he decided to fortify his position. He summoned every soul within the fortress walls. Xiao Yang called a high-stakes briefing. With everyone present, he mapped out a desperate 48-hour survival strategy. Absolute lockdown was mandatory. Every exit must be sealed. Stepping outside for any reason meant certain death. This isolation would allow their bodies to gradually harmonize with the virus, mitigating the risk of horrific mutation. Zhang Qi voiced a terrifying concern. What about Chen Chong? He still lay unresponsive in the medical bay. A heavy silence fell at his name. Though his physical wounds were healing, the underlying threat remained grave. Consciousness eluded him as his vitals plummeted. The alien contagion was aggressively claiming his entire system, like a parasite. His soul fought the change, but the virus was merciless. Black veins throbbed violently beneath his translucent skin. The infection burned through him like liquid fire. Outside, the entire metropolis had collapsed into a hellish war zone. Desperate refugees fled, while others succumbed to madness, their primal hunger turning neighbor against neighbor in the streets. Peering through his blinds, Zhang Xunji trembled. The world has truly gone insane out there, he whispered fearfully. He needed a miracle. Under the cover of darkness, he planned a risky supply run to save his family. He ordered his family to remain hidden and silent. Suddenly, violent pounding shook their only sanctuary's front door. Those thunderous rhythmic strikes echoed like a death knell. The entire family stood paralyzed by sheer cold terror. Terrified of the monster outside, Shunzi signaled for silence, while clutching a makeshift weapon for his family's protection. He crept toward the entrance, heart racing. A familiar voice called out from the shadows, "Brother Zay." Relief washed over the old man. It was his former comrade, Yang Tao, or so he desperately wanted to believe. Zay reached for the handle to welcome him, but a massive explosion of force shattered the door's frame instantly. The impact hurled Zai's frail body across the room. This wasn't a rescue. A far deadlier threat had arrived. These intruders were more monstrous than the undead. Cold-blooded thugs cornered him, their murderous intent radiating outward. Staring up at his betrayers, he searched Yang Tao's face for a shred of their former brotherhood or mercy. He pleaded for compassion, but Yang Tao scoffed. To him, Zay was just a condescending, arrogant elite puppet. He felt like a discarded tool in Zai's empire. While Yang Tao earned mere scraps for his survival, Zay was busy building entire neighborhoods. But today wasn't about the past. It was strictly a lethal business. These wolves wanted the warehouse location and keys. When Zay hesitated, their patience evaporated into pure dark malice. Seeing his resistance, Yang Tao targeted the vulnerable. He savagely seized Zai's wife, forcing a cruel, bloody ultimatum. Horror gripped Zay as his son lunged forward, a tiny warrior trying to shield his mother's life. The boy was powerless. He bit down on the thug's arm, tears of terror streaming down his face. It failed. A brutal backhand sent the child spinning. Watching his world crumble, Zay's spirit finally broke. "Take me instead," he roared, his voice cracking. Yang Tao just watched with a chilling, detached calm. "Cooperate and they live," Yang Tao whispered. The warehouse was now the only price for his family's safety. Defeated Zai led the vultures to their prey. They soon reached the massive, silent industrial storage facility. The heavy shutters groaned open, revealing a pathetic, empty space, not the legendary jackpot they had envisioned. Their prize was gone. Every crate had been liquidated, even the scraps to a mysterious high-stakes buyer. When the name Zhang Xiaoyang surfaced, a sinister new plan ignited in Yang Tao's twisted, greedy mind. Why settle for crumbs? Raiding Xiaoyang's fortress would secure enough loot to rule this broken new world. It was a ticket to godhood. But Zai warned them, this was a suicide mission into a literal fortress. He'd seen Xiaoyang armed and dangerous. This man had predicted the apocalypse long before the first mutation. Firearms didn't rattle Yang Tao. He viewed the lethal danger as Zay's problem to navigate, not his own. His cold logic was simple: steal Xiaoyang's mountain of resources at any cost to his hostages. A fair trade for your family's lives. Yang Tao smirked, his eyes gleaming with dark, murderous ambition. Brother Zai was drowning in a brutal dilemma, torn between his family's survival and the remnants of his humanity. Back at Xiaoyang's ironclad fortress, a heavy silence lingered after their successful defense against the relentless invaders. The survivors huddled in the infirmary, facing a nightmare. The greatest threat was currently strapped to the bed before them. Chen Chong, who had been lost to the infection for days, finally opened his eyes, but the boy was gone. His pulse remained, yet his soul had vanished. His comrades collapsed in grief, their tears staining the cold floor. Sobbing filled the room except for Yiming. He stood cold boldly, demanding they execute Chen Chong before it was too late. The room fell silent in shock. Xiaoyang studied the defiant boy, while Zhangqi's eyes burned with pure disgust. "How can you be so heartless?" Zhangqi hissed. Yiming didn't flinch, arguing that their friend was already a corpse. He warned that if they showed mercy now, the creature would break free and slaughter every single one of them. Xiaoyang, ever the cold pragmatist, leaned into Yiming's logic. The chance of a miracle recovery was zero. With a metallic ring, he unsheathed his combat knife, but instead of striking, he forced the hilt into Yiming's hand. "You want him dead? Then prove it," Xiaoyang challenged. Yiming froze, pure terror paralyzing his every limb. His resolve shattered instantly. Xiaoyang watched with bored eyes as the boy's supposed bravery evaporated into thin air. He reminded Yiming of his constant begging for a weapon. "Here is your steel," Xiaoyang provoked, closing the distance. "Kill him," he commanded. But Yiming couldn't move. His hands shook violently as his courage hit rock bottom. Breaking the tension, Zhangqi stepped forward. Swallowing his dread, he snatched the blade from Xiaoyang's grip. "I'll end this," Zhangqi declared, his voice trembling but firm. It was a heavy burden he had to carry. If Yiming was too cowardly to act, he would be the one to stain his hands. He gripped the hilt. His mind was a chaotic storm of doubt. Could he actually murder a friend? Xiaoyang watched him like a hawk. "Are you certain there is no undoing this? If you miss, you are nothing but a common murderer." Zhangqi's jaw tightened. "I trust your judgment," he replied, his voice steady despite the chaos in his heart. A faint knowing smile touched Xiaoyang's lips. He gave the final nod, granting permission for the execution. Zhangqi loomed over the bed, tears blurring his vision. He raised the knife, aiming straight for his friend's throat. His muscles coiled for the killing blow. But just as the steel prepared to bite, Xiaoyang's hand caught his wrist. The blade stopped inches from the skin. Zhangqi gasped, his eyes wide with confusion as he looked for answers. "Why stop me now?" he choked out. The reason was far more complex than simple mercy. The system had just pinged Xiaoyang with a wild evaluation. He immediately ordered everyone to clear the room. They were sitting on a goldmine. Chen Chong hadn't just turned. He had evolved into a legendary mutated variant. This was a game-changing discovery. The group retreated, returning to their posts within the fortress's reinforced walls. Left alone with the beast, Xiaoyang watched as the mutated Chen Chong thrashed against his metal restraints. The creature hungered for his blood. Necrotic black veins pulsed beneath its skin, a sight straight out of a nightmare. But Xiaoyang didn't flinch. He stared into the monster's eyes, feeling a rush of dark predatory excitement. With a chilling grin, he told the beast that it had a very special purpose to serve in his plans. Far away on the outskirts of town, a lone car swerved dangerously across the asphalt, struggling to stay upright. With no one else around, the driver lost control, slamming the vehicle into a lamppost with a deafening crash. Brother Zai stumbled out, cursing his luck. His only ticket to the destination was now a heap of smoking scrap. Luckily, the factory was within walking distance. He started his trek, but his calm was shattered by a low growl. A pack of starving zombies lunged from the shadows. In a moment of panic, Brother Zai used his arm as a shield. The lead zombie sank its teeth deep into his flesh. He kicked the monster back, his left arm dripping crimson. As the undead rose again, Brother Zai lunged toward the wreckage, desperately searching for his hidden crowbar. Could a piece of iron save him? Adrenaline flooded his system, granting him a sudden burst of primal strength. He swung the crowbar, caving in the zombie's face. He didn't stop raining down blows until the skull was pulp. He panted heavily over the mangled remains. Taking down just one of these freaks had nearly broken him. More moans echoed in the distance. He couldn't stay in the open or he'd be devoured in seconds. Brother Zai limped toward the factory, his entire body shivering. He prayed it was just the cold, not the virus. As the infection pulsed through his veins, a pack of dormant ghouls stood guard at the fortress gates, waiting for fresh blood. Conserving every ounce of stamina, Xiaoyang stealthily pried open the side entrance to initiate the squad's high-stakes operation. Behind him, the crew followed in a tight formation, gripping their custom-picked gear. Most relied on heavy, bone-crushing, blunt objects. Shanshan hissed that the bulky armor made her feel like a tank. Xiaoyang countered that these monsters were mindless beasts, but their raw power was lethal. For a team of rookies, one mistake meant a death sentence, making every protection layer vital. He vowed they could ditch the heavy gear once they mastered survival. The squad ghosted along the building's edge, hugging the shadows to remain invisible. As they rounded the corner, Xiaoyang locked eyes with a roamer blocking their path. He signaled for battle stations. Sensing life, the creature snapped its neck around, revealing a mouthful of jagged, rotting fangs. With the clash imminent, Xiaoyang barked a final command stick, to the drill and never leave your partner's blind spot. Maintain your distance or die. As the ghoul lunged, Xiaoyang executed a flawless weave, moving like a shadow in the wind. He danced around the strike effortlessly. Even in the heat of a deathmatch, he remained calm enough to start a tutorial. When a zombie whiffs its attack, he explained, "That is your golden window. You must capitalize on that opening immediately. Strike fast, aim for the temple or the base of the skull." But Glasses let his survival instincts override the plan. Ditching the tactical advice, he swung his weapon with desperate force. His blade whistled through the air, finding its mark. The machete bit deep into the zombie's fractured cranium. The impact dazed the monster, but the kill wasn't clean yet. Striking bone on metal sent a violent tremor up the steel, shooting an agonizing, numbing shockwave through his entire grip. The skull is essentially organic armor. Smash it directly, and the recoil will leave your hands completely paralyzed and useless. Glasses learned that lesson the hard way. The zombie shook off the stun, snapping its jaws with a fresh wave of rage. It lunged for his throat, hungry for a taste of student flesh. Luckily, Glasses reacted, shoving his blade horizontally to block. He trapped the creature's teeth on the steel while screaming for backup. Xiaoyang nodded, a solid defensive move under pressure. He ordered Zhang Qi to snap out of his trance and help. Zhang Qi's fear vanished, replaced by a cold focus. He slipped behind the beast, lining up a devastating swing at the nape. His wooden bat connected with sickening, lethal precision. A loud wet crack echoed through the alley. Xiaoyang smirked, satisfied with their first taste of real-world survival training. He warned that one hit wasn't enough. Finish it. The squad swarmed, pulverizing the corpse. Afterward, Zhang Qi beamed, craving validation. He looked for a thumbs up, but Xiaoyang's eyes shifted. Another predator emerged from the gloom, snarling with hunger. It was faster, sprinting with a terrifying primal drive. Panic surged through Jiang Qi. Xiaoyang was right in its crosshairs. He feared a lethal sneak attack would end their leader. But Xiaoyang simply spun around with casual, effortless indifference. He palmed the zombie's face like a basketball, manhandling it like a toy. The beast flailed, but its jaws couldn't reach. Watch and learn, never let your focus slip for a second. In this apocalypse, total awareness is your only insurance policy. Zhang Qi etched the lesson into his mind, while the rest stood frozen, awestruck by their leader's raw martial dominance. Elsewhere, Brother Zai hobbled toward the factory, the infection burning through his veins with every agonizing slow step he took. Crouching in the shadows, he watched mutants prowl the ruins. He figured Xiaoyang was already a rotting, mindless corpse. Just as he accepted his fate, voices drifted from the outer wall. He spotted Xiaoyang's face and crept forward. Skulking behind a rusted van, he peered through the glass. Xiaoyang wasn't alone. He was leading a squad of survivors. They were systematically wiping out mutants with brutal efficiency. But Zai was too distracted to notice the horror beneath his feet. It was Xiaoya, or the rotting shell of who she used to be. Even as a monster, her thick makeup remained. A gray clawed hand shot out, anchoring itself to his ankle. The sudden pull sent him crashing into the hard pavement. He looked down into a nightmare. Xiaoya's shredded jaw unhinged, letting out a blood-curdling roar through her tattered, bloody rags. Death's cold embrace felt certain until a thunderous gunshot shattered the silence. Someone had stepped in at the final second. A guardian angel had arrived, Xiaoyang himself. In a flash, Xiaoya's head was deleted by a well-placed, high-caliber round. It wasn't just a kill. Her head was physically vaporized. Zai recoiled in pure revulsion, kicking the twitching torso away. He scrambled back, frantic to escape the remains. Xiaoyang's eyes widened, genuinely shocked to see the snake still breathing. He demanded to know how the hell Zai survived this carnage. But Zai, being a master manipulator, skipped the truth. He didn't offer answers. Instead, he plastered on a fake smile, acting like Xiaoyang's survival was his biggest priority. He leaned in with false warmth. But as the gap closed, Xiaoyang's sharp eyes caught a jagged bite on Zai's arm. Zai was clueless until Xiaoyang's rifle barrel provided a cold, hard reality check. The message was clear: stay back or die. Zai knew his time was up, but he wouldn't quit. This was his final shot at saving his bloodline. He swallowed his pride, pleading for one last favor. Xiaoyang listened, provided Zai didn't move an inch. Desperation took over. The infection was already spreading. Soon he'd turn into a mindless beast. But first he had to stop the man holding his family hostage. That snake Yang Tao was using Zai's family as leverage to raid Xiaoyang's precious resources. Zai wasn't a hero, but even he had limits. Yang Tao's cruelty was on a whole different level. Leaving his loved ones with that monster was a nightmare far worse than the zombie virus itself. With his humanity fading, Zai begged his rival to protect the only people he ever truly loved. Xiaoyang knew Zai's greedy nature, but he couldn't forget how many times the man saved him. He weighed the options. The base needed more people, and adding 2 more wouldn't hurt their odds. Right then, a game-changing system alert flashed. A new mission in Trust the Family had been triggered. The stakes were high. Rescuing them was worth way more than grinding low-level zombies outside the walls. This was a high-reward quest Xiaoyang couldn't ignore if he wanted to level up his influence. When Xiaoyang finally agreed to help, a wave of pure relief washed over the dying man. Zai bowed low, promising to serve him faithfully in the next life since this one was over. But he had one last dark request. Xiaoyang played dumb, though he knew exactly what was coming. Zai refused to become a mindless monster that could potentially hunt his own wife and kid. "End me now," he whispered. But Xiaoyang wasn't ready to pull the trigger just yet. He knew the apocalypse demanded different sacrifices. He had a much more practical plan for Zai's exit. He ordered a bike brought out and told Zai to pedal into the absolute middle of nowhere. Zai was confused by the mercy, but in his condition, he didn't have the luxury of asking questions. With seconds of sanity remaining, he had to trust this strange command and move fast. Fueled by thoughts of his family, Zai pedaled into the sunset, racing against the virus in his veins. Back at the base, the cleanup crew was finishing their grim work. The air smelled like death. They piled the corpses high, drenching them in fuel before lighting a massive cleansing bonfire. They were drained, but the threat was neutralized. The team was finally getting the hang of this nightmare. They could handle solo zombies easily now, but massive hordes were still a recipe for a wipeout. Xiaoyang called for a retreat to the fortress. It was time to prep for the night's operation. He put Grandpa Shen in charge of the armory. The old man was the base's last line of defense. While the fortress slept, Xiaoyang planned to dive back into the city's heart. Grandpa sensed the danger. Jiangqi wanted to back him up, but Xiaoyang shut it down. The city was a death trap. He needed them to hold the fort while he went solo. Survival meant trusting the right people. He geared up with every blade and gun available, then checked the system shop for an edge. The loading bar was lagging, so he forced a refresh. 3 god-tier supply boxes suddenly appeared. Black Tech Life-Saving and Armed Deterrent. The prices were steep, especially after the manual update. 4 points was a heavy price, but Xiaoyang knew better than to be cheap with his life. He cracked open the Black Tech box. A blinding light filled the car as the loot manifested. It was a physical enhancement serum. 1 needle later, and he felt a surge of raw power. His strength skyrocketed to 13. He was now a literal superhuman, ready to tear through the city. Meanwhile, at Zai's place, the atmosphere was suffocating. The predators had finally arrived at the door. His wife tried to stay strong for their son, whispering that Daddy was on his way. But the thugs lost their patience. They kicked the door down their eyes, full of malicious intent. Yang Tao was ready to claim his prize. In this lawless world, mercy was a dead concept. The monsters in human skin moved in, and Xiaoli's world began to crumble into a nightmare. Their expressions were cold, lacking even a shred of remorse. Her son fought back, shoving one with all his strength, risking everything to shield his mother. Suddenly, Li, the man with the ponytail, stepped into the room. His sharp gaze swept the area, demanding to know the cause of the commotion. A thug smirked, claiming they were just starting the party, and invited Li to join. But Li wasn't interested in games. He ordered them to focus, reminding the crew that the mission came first. Distractions were a waste of time. One thug grumbled in annoyance, questioning the fuss. They had pulled jobs like this 100 times before. That was when Li's patience snapped. He glared, reminding them exactly whose family they were holding captive. This wasn't a random target. It was Zhangsheng Zay's blood. If she died, Zay would have no mercy. Once pushed to the edge, Z would hunt every single one of them down without hesitation. Survival would be impossible. However, Li offered a grim deal. Once Zay was eliminated for good, they could return and shatter her spirit, making every waking day a living nightmare. The thug huffed, calling Li a buzzkill for ruining the mood, but ultimately he backed off, signaling the others to leave. Yang Tao threw a chilling look at Xiao Li, whispering her turn was coming. Left in the silence, Xiao Li and her son wept as night fell. Elsewhere, on the desolate streets, our protagonist was cruising through the city deep in thought. With 13 points in stamina, he now possessed double the strength of a normal man. His reaction times were razor sharp, and his handling had peaked. He tore through the ruins, drifting around corners with surgical precision, feeling the surge of adrenaline. But the city center loomed, and driving further would attract too much heat. It was time for stealth. But as he stepped out, a guttural roar echoed through the void. 2 zombies emerged from the shadows, charging straight for him. But he didn't even flinch. With a fluid motion, he evaded and slammed his shoulder, toppling both monsters into the dirt. Wasting no time, he summoned his blade and launched a counteroffensive against the undead. One swift arc of steel, and both heads were severed in a single heartbeat. These monsters were mere fodder, now perfect targets to test his newfound power and speed. The ease of the kill was staggering. His physical limits had clearly been shattered compared to others. His instincts were heightened, and with enhanced hearing, he could sense every vibration in the air. His destination was only 800 meters away. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, a swarm of zombies was battering a grocery store's glass entrance. Inside, terrified survivors were heaving heavy shelves against the door, praying the barrier would hold a bit longer. Panic was thick in the air. A trembling boy looked at his father, his voice cracking, asking if this was the end. The father tried to stay brave, swearing those monsters wouldn't get in. He mentioned seeing his mother again, but the boy only wailed louder. A nearby officer rolled his eyes. He couldn't believe the man's empty words. It was pure, brainless nonsense to tell a kid. Who says that to a terrified child? But the father didn't take the insult lying down. He snapped back instantly. If he had brains, he'd be a rich landlord by now, not a guy hiding from ghouls. Despite the banter, even the tough guys were beginning to sweat. The rhythmic thudding on the glass never wavered. It felt like their final hour had arrived. Then, at the breaking point, a thunderous crack rang out. A gunshot echoed through the street. A zombie's head vaporized against the glass, sending a shockwave through the remaining horde. The boy collapsed in shock while his father stood stunned, unable to process what just happened. The officers snapped to attention, ordering the barricade cleared for a silent recon of the area. They peeked out, realizing the threats had been wiped clean. Stepping outside, they found a chilling silence. The boy's eyes went wide. He pointed into the dark, stammering something about a mutant. His father froze, demanding to know what he saw. The boy whispered in a shaky voice. It wasn't just a zombie out there. It was something far more terrifying. It evolved, becoming faster and more lethal straight out of a hardcore RPG. Old Song's patience wore thin as his son continued rambling about video game logic. With death looming, he snapped, baffled by his son's obsession with mindless entertainment. Bottom-tier grades finally made sense. This bitter father's name, let's call him Old Song. We'll stick with that name. The officer, losing his cool, barked at him to stop. School grades didn't matter now. They had real-world nightmares to survive. Focus was mandatory. Scanning the perimeter was vital. One mistake meant a mutant zombie ambush from the shadows. Advancing slowly, the officer hissed a final warning. Total alertness, one step at a time. Creeping toward the base, the group eventually halted at a desolate fork in the road. Old Song's gaze shifted across the street, locking onto a mysterious young man standing alone. It was our protagonist, completely unfazed, busy dumping points into his system to max his stats. Suddenly, Old Song's son shrieked in terror, pointing a trembling finger at the stranger. He screamed mutant zombie, but the officer possessing the only brain cell here looked closer. This guy didn't look infected at all. To the officer, he looked like a survivor. Our MC let out a smirk, telling the paranoid kid to chill with the wild theories. The officer exhaled in relief, stepping forward to issue a grim warning. Solitude was a death sentence out here. He insisted they join forces to stay alive. Xiaoyang analyzed the offer cautiously, asking exactly who these people were. Why such a small squad? The officer explained they were scavenging for desperate supplies. He mentioned civilians hunkered down at Rancian Garden. That specific name sparked a memory. Xiaoyang realized Jinyu Mansion was just a stone's throw away from their current position. Old Song nodded eagerly, pointing across the way and urging the youth to tag along. He boasted about their protection. Officer Lee had the firepower and the combat experience they needed. They were cocky about guarding him, oblivious to the fact that our boy was the real monster. Rather than flexing his insane power, he simply gave a calm nod and joined the pack. Together, they pressed on with extreme caution, every footfall heavy with the threat of death. Old Song pried, asking why a lone wolf like him was heading toward Jinyu Mansion. Was he searching for someone special? Xiaoyang gave a short, cold yes. He kept his secrets guarded, but Old Song was relentless and kept digging. A relative, a girlfriend. He grimly reminded the boy that society had already collapsed. His target was likely a corpse already. He needed to brace for the trauma. The officer grit his teeth, acknowledging the brutal reality of their shattered world. If the Ravagers hadn't slaughtered them, those savage beasts probably finished the job. Xiaoyang's ears perked up. Beasts Officer Lee revealed a gang of thugs ruled the mountain. These villains preyed on the weak, killing survivors, without a second thought for mercy. His squad had been ambushed before losing many allies. The officer's expression turned pitch black. He buried the trauma, warning them that other humans were often deadlier than the undead. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the silence. The boy yelled a frantic warning. A zombie lunged from the dark. Officer Lee reacted, instantly dropping it with precision shots. He stood there, gasping, chest heaving, and adrenaline surging. He thought they were toast. Peace was fleeting. The gunshots acted like a dinner bell for a massive oncoming horde. Spotting an abandoned bus, he gestured wildly for everyone to sprint for their lives. Xiaoyang smirked. Running blindly was a rookie mistake that invited more trouble. The bus provided a solid defense, but it could easily turn into a metal tomb. By the time he finished plotting, the group was already inside, gasping for air. Xiaoyang lunged into the bus, barely making it as the pressure reached a boiling point. Officer Lee moved like lightning, kicking the door shut while barking out orders. He commanded the group to stay sharp and sweep every row for any lurking monsters. The kid let out a panicked scream. The undead were swarming the bus from all sides. Lee clenched his jaw in pure fury. Those rotting freaks were still hot on their heels. The entire chassis rattled as the horde unleashed a brutal assault against the metal frame. Lee fought to hold the line, but the sheer weight of the dead was overpowering him. Without missing a beat, Xiaoyang stepped up and delivered a bone-shattering kick to the door. The impact sent the zombies flying, forcing the seal shut with absolute inhuman power. Lee froze in total shock, his jaw hitting the floor at Xiaoyang's insane physical strength. Taking charge, Xiaoyang declared he'd hold the entrance solo while the others moved. This crucial opening allowed the crew to smash the glass and launch a counteroffensive. With a grim nod, Lee bet everything on the mysterious young man's tactical instincts. Shards flew as they broke the windows, with Old Song spearheading the brutal cull. The squad rallied behind him, instantly covering his flanks to keep the momentum going. Lee gripped his firearm tight, refusing to waste a single precious bullet on the grunts. He was saving his lead for a real emergency when suddenly a crossbow materialized. Xiaoyang handed it over like it was nothing, leaving Lee staring in total bewilderment. Where did he even pull that from? Xiaoyang just gave a nonchalant shrug. He claimed he just found it, acting like it wasn't a total game changer. Old Song and Lee went to work raining bolts down to drive the monsters back. After a grueling struggle, they finally cleared the perimeter and disembarked into the chaos. The kid started vibing with confidence, boldly claiming their survival was finally guaranteed. He was dead certain they were the main characters chosen by fate to survive this hell. Xiaoyang shut that down quickly, warning everyone to stay focused and avoid sloppy errors. Back at base, the atmosphere was thick with anxiety as everyone prayed for a miracle. Yiming volunteered for sentry duty, prompting the guy with glasses to hit him with some sarcasm. He questioned Yiming's sudden grind, but Yiming wasn't in the mood for jokes. He told the geek to pipe down, insisting he'd always taken his responsibilities seriously. Sensing the rising heat, the big guy realized he messed up and immediately retreated. Grandpa Shen intervened, letting Yiming take the lead, while the rest caught some sleep. They needed their strength, so he told Yiming to sound the alarm at the first sign of trouble. As the dead of night set in, Yiming sat in silence, watching the clock tick down. While the crew drifted off, Yiming's mind was laser-focused on his true secret objective. He had to wrap this up before the kid made it back to the stronghold. In the shadows, the old man snored away the keys to the armory, sitting right there. Channeling his inner ninja, Yiming slipped through the door without making a single sound. He ghosted toward the bed, his gaze locked onto the prize as he reached out. Suddenly, the old man groaned blearily, asking Yiming what the hell he was up to. Before the old-timer could react, Yiming delivered a heavy blow that sent him back to sleep. Yiming grabbed the keys and ran, leaving the dazed man shouting into the darkness. Those screams woke the whole camp, sending the entire fortress into a state of pure chaos. A frantic chase broke out, but Yiming was already miles ahead of the disorganized mob. He flipped furniture and crates behind him, creating a makeshift obstacle course to stall them. Rather than vaulting over, they just stood there like glitched NPCs stuck on a wall. Yiming spotted the infirmary ahead. He was already waist-deep in this mess, so why stop now? He crept inside, finding the undead Chenchong bound to a cot. As Yiming closed the distance, the monster suddenly lunged with a loose hand. Yiming recoiled, realizing the restraints were a total joke. Maybe they botched the knots, but instead of panic, a dark thought crossed his mind. Yiming smirked. If the beast was already halfway out, it just saved him the dirty work. Meanwhile, the group finally cleared the debris, only to find a nightmare waiting in the hall. Fury boiled over as they realized Yiming's sick plan. He was actually liberating the monster. Gramps cursed his own blindness. Yiming was a total snake, but Sean cut him off, reminding him that regret is a luxury. They needed a survival plan, and they needed it now. With their gear locked away, their first mission was clear: neutralize that zombie immediately. Inside the infirmary, Grandpa Shen called for the tactic Zhang Xiaoyang taught them: stay sharp, and keep your distance from those jaws. They edged forward, then struck like lightning. Zhang Qi choked the beast while the others pinned its rotting limbs. Taking command, the old man gestured to the room, barking orders to haul it back. On the count of 3, they slammed the creature inside and threw the deadbolt. As the heavy door clicked shut, Zhang Qi frowned, wondering why the hell that was so much easier than he expected. A chilling realization hit them all, but the old man snapped them back to the grim reality, reminding them they had burned too much time. That little rat had likely reached the armory already. Right on cue, Yiming strolled in with a punchable smirk, mocking the old man's words. He wasn't just a brat anymore, he was armed. The cold steel of a pistol changed everything. Only one gun in the vault, Lu Yiming was ticked, but one was all he needed to end them. He'd slaughter them first, then scavenge the rest. With the barrel leveled at their chests, Yiming barked at them to retreat. Zhang Qi desperately brought up Zhang Xiaoyang, their savior, who gave them life, but Yiming just spat on the floor, claiming one good deed didn't make them his eternal servants. The old man's blood boiled at the betrayal. He cursed the ungrateful bastard, but they were powerless. Meanwhile, inside that locked room, Chen Chong was stirring. Watching the chaos through the glass, the monster was ready to strike. Before blood could spill, we shift to Ranshan Garden. Officer Li was laying out the path for Zhang Xiaoyang to reach the Jin Yu mansion. His warning was grim. The residential complex was a concrete maze, a perfect hunting ground for the undead. Li urged him to take the side entrance. The main gate was a literal death trap. Xiaoyang gave a firm nod, burning the intel into his brain as he set off toward the danger. Old Song argued they should back him up. The kid had literally pulled them from the grave. But Li stood firm. They had zero intel on the horrors lurking inside that mansion. One wrong turn into a swarm and they'd be nothing but snacks. Still, Song couldn't shake the guilt. Why send the kid on a suicide mission? Old Song asked. Li exhaled a heavy, weary breath, saying he'd said his piece. The rest was up to fate. But then, Li's eyes sharpened. Never count Xiaoyang out. The kid was built different. Meanwhile, outside the mansion, the undead prowled the streets. Inside, the thugs holding Zhang Sheng's family captive were losing their cool. Where the hell was? Zhang Wen lowlife sneered, completely unbothered, claiming he was done waiting. Tonight he'd satisfy his sick urges on Zhang's wife. He needed a thrill to sleep soundly. These idiots had no idea they were waiting for a ghost. Finally, one thug with half a brain suggested Zhang was already zombie chow. Going solo was a death sentence. The creep just shrugged, adding that, once they got their hands on the girl, they'd bind her tight so she couldn't even struggle. Overhearing their depraved schemes, the woman shivered in terror, completely defenseless against such savage cruelty. Finally, the ponytail leader gave the signal for his crew to cut loose, but with one condition. She was strictly off limits, at least until their twisted games were fully finished. Suddenly, something outside caught the leader's eye. He squinted, sensing something was seriously wrong. Every single zombie had mysteriously dropped dead. He was clueless, but we knew exactly who was responsible. Intrigued, he went to investigate, hoping a rescue squad had arrived. But before he could even move, his life ended in a heartbeat. The second he stepped out, a blade ripped through his throat. With a clean slice, his head thudded onto the pavement and rolled away. Meanwhile, the other thugs, inside the room, were ready to claim their prize, their faces twisting with sick, predatory excitement. Their eyes gleamed with malice. Xiaoli's son clung to her, but they snatched him away instantly. A brutal slap silenced Xiaoli's screams. Despite his terror, the boy refused to back down. He balled his tiny fists, ready to fight back, but the thugs had zero patience for him. They kicked the kid out and slammed the door shut, leaving him isolated in the hallway. That's when the headless corpse of the ponytail leader collapsed right in front of the boy. The kid stood paralyzed in shock, but a dark silhouette in the doorway stunned him even more. Zhang Xiaoyang looked down at the shaking boy and calmly asked if Zhang Shengzi was his father. The boy stammered a quiet yes through his fear. Inside the room, the nightmare was escalating. The thugs were already shredding Zhao Li's clothes as she desperately fought to cover herself. One arrogant bastard slapped her again, demanding a scream, but Xiao Li remained deathly silent. She wouldn't let her son hear her pain. Annoyed, the thug decided to take his turn first. Before he could touch her, the door burst open. The thug thought it was just the brat. He scoffed, turning toward the entrance, but his head was instantly cleaved off before he could blink. His friend, totally oblivious, barked at him to stop standing around like a brainless idiot. He didn't realize his partner was already dead, his lifeless body crashing heavily to the floor. The remaining thugs stood frozen, their minds completely failing to process the sudden carnage. Without hesitation, Zhang Xiaoyang grabbed one thug and slammed him violently against the wall. The man who was just undoing his belt stuttered in pure shock, asking who he was. Xiaoyang didn't answer. He delivered a devastating kick to the face, knocking the thug out instantly. The confrontation ended in seconds. Meanwhile, back at the fort, the atmosphere was suffocating. Lu Yiming stood with his weapon drawn, his voice cold, as he issued one final warning. Move or die. Seeing no escape, the old man urged the group to obey the bastard. They entered the room, though. Shan hesitated. The old man insisted she play along for now. He reminded her that Yiming held the gun, promising a plan later. Yiming just smirked. His face was a mask of pure arrogance. He told them there was no escape or plan. They hadn't even witnessed his true brutality yet. He was ready to cement his dominance forever. Without another word, he targeted the old man first, for being the loudest voice there. The bystanders tried to plead for his life, but a sudden noise froze the entire room. The infirmary lock began to rattle violently before the door flew open, shocking everyone present. To their horror, it was Chen Chong. Somehow, even while berserk, he had unlocked the door. It seemed impossible, but he was free, and he clearly had only one target in mind. His lethal gaze locked onto Yiming like a predator. Panic surged as Yiming raised his weapon. He was determined to kill this monster who could bypass locks at will. He pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. Cold realization and pure despair flooded his eyes. He knew he was finished. Before he could move, Chen Chong lunged with terrifying superhuman speed. In one brutal motion, he shredded Yiming, finally ending the tyrant's reign of terror for good. The nightmare was far from over. Chen Chong silently hauled Yiming's cold, lifeless corpse toward the shadows of the infirmary. The crowd stood frozen in pure terror, their minds reeling. They couldn't process the sheer brutality they'd just witnessed. With chilling composure, Chen Chong snatched the infirmary key, discarded it, and barricaded himself inside the room, leaving everyone paralyzed with confusion. Meanwhile, Zhang Xiaoyang finished crushing the goons and liberated the trembling mother. As she shielded her son like a cornered animal, Xiaoyang motioned for the boy to step toward him. Terrified, the mother clung to him tighter, her voice shaking as she demanded to know his intentions for her child. Xiaoyang offered no comfort, simply commanding the boy to approach. After a tense heartbeat of hesitation, the boy whispered that he'd be okay, gently pulling away from his mother to face the man. Reaching him, Xiaoyang pressed a cold dagger into his small hands. His voice was lethal. Finish them. The remaining thugs realized their fate. They collapsed to their knees, pathetically wailing and begging for mercy they didn't deserve. Even the mother cried out in desperation, pleading that her son was still just an innocent child. But Xiaoyang didn't flinch. He declared that childhood was over. From this second on, the world had changed forever. Now the weight of his mother's life rested solely on his shoulders. To keep her safe, he had to find his steel and erase the monsters who hurt her. As those vile mocking smirks flashed before him, a volcanic rage erupted within the boy, fueled by a dark resolve that burned through his lingering fear. He lunged forward, striking with lethal precision. His mother watched in horror as her son became a killer to survive. The thugs were gone, but the boy's heart felt like lead. Victory couldn't bring back the father he'd lost. Drowning in grief, he turned his tear-streaked face toward Xiaoyang, asking if his father was truly gone. Xiaoyang's expression softened with grim reality. He gave a somber nod, confirming the man was gone forever. Letting the blood-stained blade clatter to the floor, the boy collapsed.